Chapter 345. Ever since the battle with the Scaled Tribe, Chu Kuangren had returned to the Black Heaven sect. He had not left the Towering Heaven Palace for the past few days as well. This puzzled Elder Ruyan and the others. Didn't he just go into closed-door meditation to become an honorable supreme? Why did he go into closed-door meditation again? Although they were puzzled, they did not think too much about it. However, while Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation, the unknown lands began to reveal themselves one after another, stirring up a storm in Firmament Star. The sage orthodoxies that used to be superior were no different from the average orthodoxies in the face of these unknown lands. Some sage orthodoxies even tried to use this opportunity to curry favor with the unknown lands. However, no one had heard of any sage orthodoxies doing so. Besides that, the Empyrean walkers from the various unknown lands began to show their prowess on Firmament Star, defeating all the Sky Prides. The young emperors, the 10 unparalleled heroes, and other top-notch Sky Prides who used to be superior were no match for these Empyrean walkers. The unknown lands, the unknown cultivation techniques, and the Empyrean walkers who came from the unknown lands and cultivated the unknown cultivation techniques. This was the hottest topic in the Firmament Star right now, the topic that attracted the most attention. Inside the Black Heaven sect. Inside a valley. A few Taoists of the Black Heaven sect were training. When they were done, they gathered together and seemed to be discussing something. I heard that a few days ago, the young emperor of the Overlord Sage tribe, Xianxia, was killed by an Empyrean walker from ethereal rapture in 3 moves. At that moment, Nangong Huang suddenly said. Upon hearing that, the Taoists' expressions froze. They had witnessed Xianxia's strength in the Sky Pride Championship, but they did not expect him to be defeated in 3 moves. They would not have dared to imagine such strength in the past. He only used 3 moves. The sect leader can easily suppress Xianxia with just a lift of his hand. He's no match for the sect leader. Jin Fian pouted and said. The others also showed expressions of agreement. However, Nangong Huang still said, the sect leader is us and we are us. If we keep relying on the sect leader, there will be no future for the Black Heaven sect. Compared to these Empyrean walkers, we still have a long way to go. We need to work harder in our cultivation. Who knows if we'll face them in the future? Well said. Among us, perhaps only Lan Yu can compete with those Empyrean walkers. Murong Xian looked at Lan Yu, who was still training. Ever since her return from the first city, Lan Yu has been in a state of high-intensity training. Out of the 24 hours in a day, only 4 hours were used for other tasks. The rest were used for cultivation. Even if the other party was a venerable one, it was not easy for them to endure the training. Not only was it a test of their physical qualities and cultivation base, but it was also a huge burden on their minds. Boom! Lan Yu had destroyed one of the sword chi clones in the sword gauntlet. At that moment, her face was covered in sweat. The sword chi clones in front of her once again reformed and struck out with their swords, sending her flying out of the sword gauntlet. Lan Yu exited the sword gauntlet and let out a long sigh of relief. The 48th floor of the sword gauntlet is too terrifying. The sword chi doppelganger is indestructible and its strength will always be higher than mine. How did the young master manage to pass through it? She thought, frowning. After leaving the sword gauntlet, Lan Yu went to the gravity training field. She only returned to the Towering Heaven Palace in the evening. At night, she used the Taoist Palace's formation to cultivate her spiritual power. The next morning, she got up and walked out of her house. She glanced at Chu Kuangren and saw that he was still in closed-door meditation. However, there was something unusual about the Black Heaven sect that day. On her way to the sword gauntlet, Lan Yu noticed that there were very few disciples in the Black Heaven sect. She stopped a passing disciple. Where did everyone go? Lan Yu asked curiously. Everyone went to the Longevity Hall. I heard that an Empyrean walker came to the Longevity Hall. Everyone was curious, so they went to take a look. An Empyrean walker? Lan Yu's eyes lit up when she heard that. She followed a group of disciples to the Longevity Hall and saw the Empyrean walker there. It was a young man dressed in black with a dignified aura. Elder Ruyan was busy attending to him, so she dared not neglect him. After all, he was a representative of the unknown lands. I heard that he came from a place called the Qixing Palace. Along the way, he defeated 3 young emperors in a row, and each time he only used one move. What? He's that powerful? That's right. These Empyrean walkers are extremely powerful, and none of them should be underestimated. I heard that they are comparable to sages. That terrifying? Outside the Longevity Hall, everyone was discussing fervently. Lan Yu was also among them, sizing up the Empyrean walker. Gradually, a serious look appeared in her eyes. This person is very strong. Inside the Longevity Hall, Xianxia smiled. I wonder where sect leader Chu is now. The sect leader is currently in closed-door meditation. It's not convenient for him to meet any guests. Elder Ruyan said. Xianxia frowned. I wonder when sect leader Chu will come out of his closed-door meditation? We're not sure about that. Chu Kuangren did not mention when he would come out of his closed-door meditation, nor did he mention the reason for his closed-door meditation. Therefore, the people of the Black Heaven sect did not know when he would come out of his closed-door meditation. Since Chu Kuangren had been in closed-door meditation for 3 years, they would not be surprised if they did not see him for a year and a half. Since sect leader Chu is in closed-door meditation, I'll wait for him in the Black Heaven sect. I wonder if Elder Ruyan can arrange a place for me to stay? Xianxia smiled, showing no intention of leaving. Hearing this, Elder Ruyan frowned slightly. May I know why you must look for our sect leader? Nothing else. I've heard that sect leader Chu is very powerful, so I'm here to learn a thing or two from him. Xianxia did not hide the purpose of his visit. His words did not come as a surprise to Elder Ruyan and the others. The reason why Empyrean walkers entered the realm was to make a name for their orthodoxies in this era of great battles, to fight for fortunes, and to pave the way for the unknown lands to fully reveal themselves. Since ancient times, there were only a few ways for a cultivator to make a name for himself. Among them, the most convenient and common way was to defeat some famous people with their strength and use their reputation as a stepping stone to rise to the top. In this world today, who could be more famous than Chu Kuangren? It was only a matter of time before he was targeted by the Empyrean walkers. Brother Yi, don't worry. I'll get someone to arrange a place for you to stay, Elder Ruyan said after some thought. Since Xianxia was here to challenge the unknown lands, it would be too impolite to just send him away. Moreover, it would give others the impression that Chu Kuangren was a coward. Where's Chu Kuangren? At that moment, a voice came from outside the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate. Everyone looked over and saw a muscular young man standing in front of the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate. A strange look flashed across Xianxia's eyes when he saw that person. I was wondering who it was. So it's the immovable sect's Empyrean walker, Guisan. Everyone was speechless when they heard his words. Holy H*T, another Empyrean walker? Elder Ruyan brought her people to Guisan and said, May I know why you're here looking for our Black Heaven sect's sect leader? I want to challenge Chu Kuangren. Guisan laughed. Elder Ruyan shook her head helplessly. Fine, another one is here to challenge our sect leader. Chapter 346. While Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation, the Empyrean walkers kept coming to challenge him. First came Xianxia, then came Guisan. After making arrangements for the two of them, another 2 Empyrean walkers came knocking on Elder Ruyan's door in the next few days, giving her quite a headache. Meanwhile, news of the Empyrean walkers challenging Chu Kuangren had spread like wildfire, and many people were paying close attention to this matter. In the Black Heaven sect, the 4 Empyrean walkers were currently gathered together. Everyone, what do you guys think of Chu Kuangren? Xianxia from the Qixing Palace was the first to speak. At the side, a woman with a voluptuous figure smiled charmingly. I heard that he has the looks of a celestial being. Who knows how many people have been mesmerized by his face? I really want to see just how beautiful he is. I didn't expect the Empyrean walkers of Thousand Flowers Valley to be such shallow people. What a disappointment. A burly man with black hair and black sneered and said disdainfully. This person was an Empyrean walker from the Battle Cloud Realm, Zhanlong. Who's like you Battle Cloud Realm people? You're all a bunch of battle maniacs who don't know how to appreciate the beauty of life. Feng Yaorao, the Empyrean walker from Myriad Flower Valley, rolled her eyes and said, I've heard that this Chu Kuangren can fight a great sage. I don't know if it's true, but his strength shouldn't be underestimated. Xianxia said, Haha, I know that Chu Kuangren won't be able to come out of his closed-door meditation anytime soon. Why don't we have a competition first? What do you think? Guishan of the immovable residence suddenly suggested. Upon hearing that, the eyes of the other three lit up. The most battle-hungry Zhanlong even grinned and said, All right then. Since Chu Kuangren has yet to come out of his closed-door meditation, it's fine to have a few appetizers first. Hearing his words, everyone raised their eyebrows. Treating us as an appetizer? You sure are arrogant. I just don't know if you can eat it. Let me test you first. Guishan took a step forward, and an extremely majestic Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. It was as if his entire being was connected to the ground beneath his feet, and his entire body emanated an aura that was as heavy as a mountain. The immovable manner was proficient in the Tao of Earth Qi. They could borrow the boundless earthen Qi and transform it into battle power. Come on. Zhanlong laughed out loud, and a majestic Taoist rhyme erupted from his body as well. This Taoist rhyme was violent and scorching. As it spread out, more than half of the Black Heaven sect seemed to be shrouded in an endless battle cloud. Everyone could almost hear the roars of battle coming from the void. Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others were all alarmed. They looked into the distance with bewilderment in their eyes. Such a terrifying aura. Is this the strength of an Empyrean walker? They are indeed extraordinary, but why are they fighting? Let's go and take a look. The few of them hurried over to where the Empyrean walkers resided. Guishan and Zhanlong had already started fighting. Both of them were extremely powerful sky prides. Just the clash of their Taoist rhymes alone had affected half of the Black Heaven sect. As they fought, terrifying energy ripples spread, and many of the spectating disciples were sent flying. What a terrifying aura. We can't even get close to it. Too strong. Some of the disciples discussed spiritedly, feeling incomparably amazed. In the face of such a battle, only Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others could withstand the pressure and watch the battle from a close distance. Even so, it was still very difficult for them to fight Empyrean walkers like Guishan and Zhanlong. Boom. Guishan and Zhanlong's fists and palms collided. The violent earth qi and surging spiritual energy collided, causing the mountain beneath their feet to rapidly crack and collapse with a loud bang. A landslide erupted, instantly destroying the residences of some of the nearby disciples. However, Guishan and Zhanlong were oblivious to it. They were still engrossed in their battle, their terrifying Taoist rhymes constantly intertwining. Boom, boom, boom. Both of their combat strength was extraordinary, and great power was often accompanied by destruction. The battle between the two Empyrean walkers had already caused severe damage to some parts of the Black Heaven sect. Although it was not a big deal for a large sect like Black Heaven sect, who knew how many more things would be destroyed? If they continued to fight like this, who knew how many more things would be destroyed? If more lives were lost, it would be even more difficult to clean up the mess. No, we have to stop them. At least let them fight somewhere else. Nangong Huang frowned slightly. His figure flashed, and spiritual energy surged all over his body. Yin-yang divine light flowed in his eyes as he resisted the shockwaves from the battle between the two Empyrean walkers. Both of you, please stop. Your battle has already caused damage to the Black Heaven sect. Go fight somewhere else. Nangong Huang said loudly. We're having a good time. How can we possibly stop? Don't worry, we'll compensate for the damage. We have plenty of spirit stones anyway, Zhanlong said with a laugh. His body was burning with a raging battle intent. Opposite him, Guishan was equally excited. That's right. We're already at this stage. How can we stop just like that? Come to take this. Seal of mountains and rivers. Guishan formed a mysterious hand seal, and waves of earth qi gushed out from the surface of the ground. It then transformed into a gigantic mountain range that carried a peerlessly powerful and boundless Taoist rhymes as it smashed towards Zhanlong. Good one. Zhanlong's eyes lit up. He clenched his fist, and an equally powerful Taoist rhyme gathered. Heaven Conqueror Fist. He threw a punch, and the fist force raged like a torrential flood. Boundless battle intent and Taoist rhymes slammed into the void. Both forces had reached the level of a sage, and the shockwaves caused by the collision spread. Nangong Huang, who was closest to the battle, was shocked. He quickly mobilized all the spiritual energy in his body and emitted a yin-yang divine light to resist the impact. Even so, he was still pushed back hundreds of feet. He felt a tightness in his chest, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. What a powerful force. I can't even withstand the shockwaves. Nangong Huang watched the battle in horror. Both Empyrean walkers were not at the level of a sage, but they could exert sage-level combat strength. This was what Empyrean walkers were like. Without absolute strength, how could they dare to make a name for their sect? Deep within the Black Heaven sect. This is too much. Do they really think that just because they're Empyrean walkers and represent the unknown lands, they can do whatever they want in the Black Heaven sect? The Black Heaven sect's third forefather said angrily. Just when he was about to stop Guisan and Zhanlong from causing more damage to the Black Heaven sect. In the distance, a sword ray shot into the sky from the direction of the towering Heaven Palace, and an incredibly cold sword-based Taoist rhyme quickly spread. The Black Heaven sect's third forefather and the others could not help but be surprised. This aura, is the sect leader out of his closed-door meditation? It's not the sect leader. It was not Chu Kuangren who came out from the towering Heaven Palace. Instead, it was an exquisite and beautiful sword shaped like white jade. That was the sword that was ranked first in the 100-sword spectrum. Descendant Self. The Descendant Self sword trembled slightly, and like a stream of light, it shot into the sky above the battle between Guisan and Zhanlong. Then, an overwhelming sword-based Taoist rhyme gushed out. When Guisan and Zhanlong felt the terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme, their expressions changed, and they stopped what they were doing. Chapter 347. The Descendant Self sword stopped above the two Empyrean walkers. An incredibly cold sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated and landed on the two Empyrean walkers, forcing them to temporarily stop their attacks. They looked at the Descendant Self sword that was floating in the air with a hint of fear in their eyes. They dared not act recklessly. Is Chu Kuangren here? Guisan asked solemnly. No, he's not here. It's only his sword that's here. Not far away, Yexen took a deep breath and said, he had done some research on Chu Kuangren before he arrived, so he naturally knew that the magnificent ancient sword before him was Chu Kuangren's weapon. Yet, a single sword was already so powerful. What about Chu Kuangren's combat strength? At that thought, Yexen's heart was filled with fear, but at the same time, he was looking forward to meeting Chu Kuangren. Indeed, he's a strong opponent. A single sword. Upon hearing that, Zhanlong was enraged. What does Chu Kuangren mean? A single sword? Is he trying to suppress us with just a single sword? Isn't he looking down on us a little too much? As he said that, he took a step forward and clenched his fist. An extremely violent Taoist rhyme poured out like a torrent towards the Descendant Self sword. The power of this strike was unparalleled. The fist energy swept through the void, causing the void to rumble with sonic booms. Just as that punch was about to land on the Descendant Self sword, the sword trembled slightly and an even more terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme gushed out, accompanied by a dazzling purple sword ray. The sword ray destroyed Zhanlong's punch like a hot knife through butter before it landed on Zhanlong's body. The terrifying force sent Zhanlong flying hundreds of feet away, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The Empyrean walkers at the scene were dumbfounded by that scene. Just a single sword and a single sword chi could render an Empyrean walker defenseless. What kind of terrifying strength was that? Chu Kuangren really lives up to his name, Guisan said solemnly. Not too far away, Zhanlong flew into a rage out of humiliation. Boundless spiritual energy seemed to surge from his body and his eyes were gradually dyed with a layer of black light. I was too careless just now. I still have an even stronger move that I have yet to use. I don't believe that a single sword can do anything to us. They were Empyrean walkers who represented the various unknown lands in the world. They shouldered the mission of spreading the name of their orthodoxies, but now they were being suppressed by a sword. If word of this got out, what would they say? The other Empyrean walkers would laugh themselves to death. I advise you to conserve your strength. Don't get mad at a sword. Chu Kuangren hasn't even shown himself yet. Just as Zhan Long was about to make his move, Yi Xen suddenly said. Upon hearing his words, Zhan Long's eyes flashed. After pondering for a while, he slowly retracted the aura on his body. Oof, that's fine too. I'll save this move for Chu Kuangren when I meet him. High up in the sky, the descendant self-sword, which had sensed that Zhan Long's aura had been withdrawn, trembled slightly. Then, an even more powerful sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted from its body, crashing onto the four Empyrean walkers like mountains. It was as if it was asking, do you guys still want to fight? In the face of such a provocative descendant self-sword, Zhan Long was so angry that he almost attacked again. However, he forced himself to restrain himself in the end. After the Empyrean walkers stopped their attacks, the descendant self-sword hovered in the sky for a while before it retracted its sword-based Taoist rhyme. It then turned into a stream of light that pierced through the clouds and returned to the towering heaven palace. What a good sword! Yi Xen could not help but exclaim. The sword is good, but I wonder how the person is doing. I hope he doesn't disappoint me too much. Zhan Long snorted coldly. You were sent flying by a single sword chi. I really don't know where you get the courage to say that, Feng Yaorao said with a chuckle. Zhan Long's expression darkened. Feng Yaorao, do you want to fight? Believe it or not, if we keep fighting, that sword will fly back to us. When that happens, I don't want to be sent flying by a sword like you, Feng Yaorao said with a faint smile. All right, let's not cause any more trouble before Chu Kuangren comes out of his closed-door meditation. Yi Xen said. Feng Yaorao and Guisan nodded. They had the same thought. As for Zhan Long, although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. He could only suppress his anger and wait for Chu Kuangren to come out of his closed-door meditation. Not far away, Nangong Huang and the others looked at each other. Are we going to stop fighting just like that? The sect leader only used a sword to stop the battle between these Empyrean walkers. Tiske, this technique is truly admirable. The sect leader is indeed the sect leader. He easily achieved what we couldn't. That's right. The few Taoists discussed. At the same time, after witnessing the battle between the Empyrean walkers, they deeply felt that their strength was far from enough. Compared to these Empyrean walkers, their performance in the Sky Pride Championship was not even worth mentioning. They were not on the same level at all. I have to work harder, Nangong Huang said emotionally. The descendant self-sword flew back to the towering heaven palace and landed in Chu Kuangren's room. Is it settled? Chu Kuangren smiled as he looked at the descendant self-sword that had returned. The descendant self-sword floated up and down as if it was nodding. It then spun around twice as if it was asking for praise. Not bad. Chu Kuangren did as the descendant self-sword wished and praised it. The descendant self-sword spun around happily a few more times before it lay quietly on the bed. How dare a few Empyrean walkers mess around in the Black Heaven sect? I'm afraid these newbies haven't been beaten up by society yet. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and said. Then, he looked at the three orbs of light that were floating in front of him, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. I guess it's almost time. The three orbs of light were black, silver, and gold respectively. They were the Heaven's Halberd, Sea King's Halberd, and Golden Halberd that Chu Kuangren had obtained consecutively. At this moment, he was refining these three boundary Emperor weapons, planning to merge them into one and turn them back into the Emperor weapon, Sea King's Halberd. Refining a monarch armament was not an easy task. In the past, Chu Kuangren was able to refine the sacred emerald sword case because he had the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, which was very compatible with the sacred emerald sword case. With the sword case recognizing him as its master, the refinement process was unusually smooth. However, refining the emperor weapon, Sea King's halberd, was not so easy. This emperor weapon was the Scaled Tribe's emperor weapon, and all emperor weapons were arrogant and prideful. Without its recognition, it would be difficult for an ordinary cultivator to refine it. In other words, it was not a human who chose the emperor weapon. It was the emperor weapon that chose the human. It was definitely not an easy task to refine it by force. Chu Kuangren was extremely talented. Although the emperor weapon did not resist his refinement, it was not as active as the sacred emerald sword case either. Therefore, it would take him some time to refine this emperor weapon. This was also the reason why he had been in closed-door meditation for the past few days. Now, this emperor weapon was almost fully refined by him. Time passed. Another 2 days had passed. Just when the Empyrean walkers were getting impatient and countless people were waiting to see how Chu Kuangren would deal with the 4 Empyrean walkers, Chu Kuangren's room door opened. In the courtyard, Lan Yu and Lil Bing looked over in surprise. "Master, you're finally out of closed-door meditation." The two of them went up to greet him. In the distance, Yi Exin, Zhan Long, and the others also sensed it. "Hi, he's out." Chapter 348. He's finally out. After waiting for so long, it's not a waste of time. "Chu Kuangren, I'm coming." The 4 Empyrean walkers gathered in the Black Heaven sect all turned into streams of light and flew towards the Towering Heaven Palace. Inside the Towering Heaven Palace, Chu Kuangren was catching up with Lil Bing and Lan Yu while the godly phoenix rubbed itself against him. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and looked into the distance. "That annoying person is here." Chu Kuangren curled his lips with a look of disdain. If it were a normal challenge, he would not be so disgusted. After all, people loved fame, and there were many who wanted to use him as a stepping stone, not to mention these Empyrean walkers who wanted to make a name for their orthodoxies. However, a challenge was a challenge. What was the point of destroying the Black Heaven sect's public property? Did he really think that the Black Heaven sect's soul stones came from nowhere? He had worked so hard to win them back. Chu Kuangren, you're finally out." A burst of laughter resounded in the sky above the Towering Heaven Palace. Zhan Long was the first to arrive, and his battle intent erupted. The battle intent was like a tidal wave that slammed into the void and caused the weather to change. The entire Towering Heaven Palace shook twice. Chu Kuangren frowned. "I'm afraid you won't be able to pay for my palace if you damage it." Hearing that, Zhan Long laughed and said, "You're the Black Heaven sect leader. Can't you even part with a Taoist palace?" "Rest assured, sect leader Chu. If this battle causes any damage, we'll pay for it." At that moment, Yi Xian also arrived. Feng Yaorao and Guisan also arrived. When she saw Chu Kuangren, a strange look flashed across Feng Yaorao's eyes. "You really have the looks of a celestial being. Little brother, why don't you give up your position as sect leader and follow me back to the Thousand Flower Valley? I guarantee that you'll enjoy yourself so much that you'll never want to leave again." Chu Kuangren replied, "No need. I'm doing quite well as a sect leader. My back is not sore, and my legs are not aching. If I go to the Thousand Flower Valley, I'm afraid I won't even be able to get out of bed." Little bro, you sure know how to joke. How could we make it so that you can't even get out of bed? You make it sound like Myriad Flower Valley is a den of demons and we will eat you up, Feng Yaorao said with a coquettish laugh. "Cut the crap. I know why you came to my Black Heaven sect. I don't like trouble. It's too troublesome to fight one by one. I sincerely suggest that you all come at me together." Chu Kuangren said with an indifferent expression as he stood with his hands behind his back. However, his words made the 4 Empyrean walkers' expressions change slightly. Even Feng Yaorao, who had been smiling all this while, had a hint of anger on her face. "Sect Master Chu, you're looking down on us too much." Yi Xian's face darkened. As Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands, they naturally had their own pride. However, now that they were being looked down upon by Chu Kuangren, coupled with the fact that they had waited for so many geniuses, they could not help but be enraged. However, Chu Kuangren did not seem to notice their anger at all. He continued, "I'm not looking down on you guys. I'm just proposing the most reasonable plan based on the current situation." His words did not comfort the Empyrean walkers. Instead, it was like adding fuel to the fire, making them even angrier. "What do you mean by the current situation? What is the most reasonable plan? If you say that we're no match for you, then just say it be ****. Chu Kuangren, you sure are arrogant. I'd like to see if you can still say something like that later." Zhan Long was the first to lose his patience. He took a step forward and dashed out. His 5 fingers were filled with a majestic force as he clenched them into a fist and smashed it towards Chu Kuangren. Lan Yu and Lil Bing, who were behind Chu Kuangren, felt an extremely terrifying pressure sweeping towards them. Lan Yu could withstand it, but Lil Bing was in a difficult situation. Her body trembled, and it was only thanks to Lan Yu that she did not kneel on the ground. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren unleashed his Battle Monarch domain to protect the 2 ladies. He then looked at Zhan Long, who was charging towards him with a cold gaze. "How rude of you to attack just like that." He raised his hand and unleashed a punch as well. He did not use any mystical Taoist techniques. Instead, he simply blasted out his spiritual power. Even so, with the 6 supreme foundation levels in his body, the power of that punch was still extremely terrifying. An incredibly powerful surge of spiritual power spread out like a tidal wave and collided with Zhan Long's punch. The huge force sent Zhan Long flying. Then, Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and appeared before Zhan Long. His speed was so fast that it was difficult for anyone to react. When Chu Kuangren arrived before Zhan Long, he grabbed him by the collar without any resistance. Then he dashed into the distance. Xianxia, Feng Yaorao, and Guisan quickly chased after him. Chu Kuangren arrived at the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance with Zhan Long in his grasp. He lifted his arm and flung Zhan Long into a mountain peak. "Alright, it's more spacious here. Let's fight here," Chu Kuangren said. Behind him, Xianxia, Feng Yaorao, and Guisan had already caught up. They were speechless when they saw Zhan Long being flung into the mountain peak. Zhan Long was not weak, but he was still caught by Chu Kuangren and thrown into the mountain without any resistance. Just the thought of it was terrifying. At least, the 3 of them could not do it. He asked the 4 of us to attack him together. Perhaps he really has the strength to fight all of us at once. Xianxia said solemnly. "Chu Kuangren." At that moment, a roar came from the mountain peak. Zhan Long soared into the sky. First, he was suppressed by Chu Kuangren's sword, and now he was thrown into the mountain. His rage had already accumulated to the limit. Mixed with his battle intent, it erupted in one go and swept out in a frenzy in all directions. "Oh, you're angry now," Chu Kuangren said playfully. "Chu Kuangren, eat this. Sky Conqueror Fist, violent." Zhan Long gave it his all. His eyes were filled with black light, a sign that his battle intent had reached its limit. After he unleashed that punch, a series of battle roars erupted in the void. The power of that punch had surpassed that of an ordinary sage. For someone below the level of a sage to be able to unleash such a fist technique, Zhan Long's talent and combat strength could be said to be rare. That was the true strength of an Empyrean walker trained by the unknown lands. He was an unparalleled sky pride that surpassed the understanding of the world. Battle intent? What a coincidence, I have one too, Chu Kuangren said. A terrifying ferocious chi suddenly erupted from his body. Infallible tormented physique activated. As he unleashed his punch, an even more terrifying battle intent and ferocious chi erupted. The battle roar that reverberated in the void overpowered Zhan Long. When the 2 fist energies collided in the void, Zhan Long's fist energy was shattered in less than a breath's time. The fist energy that was mixed with ferocious chi and battle intent landed on Zhan Long's body. The terrifying force immediately smashed his opponent thousands of feet into the ground, forming a huge pitch-black crater. I told you to come at me together. Why didn't you guys believe me? Alright, now it's just the 3 of you. Chu Kuangren looked at Xianxia and the other 2 and gestured for them to come at him. Come on, let's get this boring farce over with as soon as possible. Chapter 349. Come at me together. Let's end this nonsense quickly. Chu Kuangren said calmly. His words made the remaining 3 Empyrean walkers' faces turn grim. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to look down on them so much. Immovable Residence Empyrean Walker, Guishan, thanks for the challenge. Guishan took a step forward and channeled the spiritual power in his body. A surge of majestic Taoist rhyme erupted, guiding the surrounding earth chi into the sky. The earth chi gathered in the void and turned into a mountain range that was filled with dense energy. It then smashed towards Chu Kuangren. Seal of mountains and rivers. Facing an attack that was comparable to a sage's, Chu Kuangren calmly raised his hand. I'm familiar with guiding the power of earth chi too. He raised his hand and a surge of violent yellow earth chi rose from the ground. Its scale was even more majestic than Guishan's seal of mountains and rivers. The earth chi gathered in his palm and emitted a yellow divine light. Chu Kuangren gently clapped his hands. A surge of terrifying human mountain energy erupted from his palm and swept away the incoming mountain range as if it was sweeping away dust. Accompanied by a deafening sound, the huge mountain range was forcefully shattered into pieces and turned back into spiritual chi. The Taoist rhyme then dissipated. Guishan's eyes widened when he saw that. How is this possible? He knows how to use earth chi too, and it's so terrifying. Guishan came from the immovable residence, and among the unknown lands, the immovable residence was the best at using earth chi. Ever since he entered the realm, Guishan had dominated the firmament with his earth chi manipulation technique and the seal of mountains and rivers. This was the first time in his life that he was at a disadvantage in a battle of earth chi. It was a huge blow to him. I'll take him on. Xianxia from the 7-Star Palace made his move too. He took a step forward and a large amount of starry Taoist rhyme flowed beneath his feet. It instantly formed a magnificent scene of the Milky Way. 7-Star Sword Go. A sword appeared in Xianxia's hand. The sword's design was extremely gorgeous, and it was surrounded by streaks of starry Taoist rhyme. With a swing of the sword, the starry Taoist rhyme around Xianxia gathered and turned into a dazzling sword ray that resembled the Milky Way. Such a sword Tao was magnificent, dazzling, and peerlessly vast. It does look good, but it's too gaudy, Chu Kuangren said. Then, without moving the descendant self-sword at his waist, Chu Kuangren pointed his sword finger and drew a line in the air. Following that, a purple sword ray appeared out of thin air and rushed out with a majestic sharpness. The moment the two sword chis collided, the Milky Way sword chi shattered inch by inch. The entire sword chi, from the spiritual energy to the Taoist rhyme, collapsed. The sword light slashed toward Xianxia like a hot knife through butter. He blocked with his sword. With a loud clang, the Big Dipper sword in his hand hummed incessantly as he was forcefully knocked back several thousand feet. He held the 7-Star sword in his hand, but his palm was already cracked and bleeding. At this moment, the sound of a zither suddenly resounded. Feng Yaorao took out a zither and plucked it with her 10 fingers. An incomparably profound zither sound reverberated in the air. There seemed to be a faint fragrance drifting in the air, tugging at the heartstrings of people. Between heaven and earth, hundreds of flowers suddenly bloomed. Each flower was formed by the spiritual energy drawn by the sound of the zither, and contained an incomparably sharp strength. The sound of the zither was captivating, the fragrance of the flowers was intoxicating, and the petals were deadly blades. This was the sound of the zither from the 10,000 Flower Valley, 100 flowers in bloom. The sound of the zither continued to reverberate. However, Chu Kuangren had an invisible barrier around him that kept the petals at bay. His eyes were clear, and he did not look like he was mesmerized by the zither sound. Instead, he looked at Feng Yaorao with interest. Upon seeing this, Feng Yaorao plucked all 10 fingers, and the sound of the zither did not stop. She channeled her spiritual energy, and more spiritual chi gathered. Under the guidance of the zither sound, countless petals swayed in the air and floated toward Chu Kuangren. The zither sound is not bad, but the Taoist rhyme is a little lacking. You should meet my zither. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He then placed the lingering zither in front of his chest. He plucked the strings, and a surge of surging zither Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. Boundless heaven and earth, stormy city, resounding bells, the sound of the zither reverberated throughout the land. Feng Yaorao's zither sound was instantly suppressed by Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords. That dense and majestic zither Taoist rhyme stunned her. She could not move her fingers on the zither strings. The difference in their zither Taoist rhymes was obvious. The 4 great Empyrean walkers, 4 peerless sky prides from the unknown lands, were defeated by Chu Kuangren in their respective areas of expertise. Such a blow was even more unbearable than directly defeating them. I don't believe it. I don't believe that you're truly invincible. Not far away, Zhan Long, who was punched thousands of meters into the ground by Chu Kuangren, rushed out with a set of black armor on his body. That armor was extremely ferocious as it covered Zhan Long's entire body. Coupled with Zhan Long's overwhelming battle intent, he looked like a god of war. He took a stride forward while monstrous battle intent erupted from him. Under the boost provided by the armor, his might actually rose a level higher than before. Sky-conquering tyrant fist, world crumbling. Zhan Long roared with a soaring battle intent. He threw out a punch, and a terrifying spiritual power and Taoist rhyme that seemed capable of destroying the world erupted. In an instant, the world crumbled, and the winds and clouds changed. A gigantic fist mark descended from the sky. That fist mark had yet to come close, but it had already caused the ground around him to crack and explode, forming a huge crater. Faced with such power, Chu Kuangren remained calm. He gently lifted his hand, and boundless ferocious qi and battle intent gushed out. The infallible tormented physique was activated once again. Chu Kuangren gently threw out a punch, but a surge of violent fury gushed out. Raging God's Fist. The pitch-black fist mark burned with raging flames as it violently smashed onto Zhan Long's fist mark. The 2 fist marks collided and exploded. A terrifying shockwave spread out rapidly, and the mountains within a 100-kilometer radius crumbled in an instant. Smoke and dust rose into the air, almost covering half the sky. Under such a terrifying shockwave, Zhan Long was forced to retreat even though he was protected by his black armor. He could feel a sense of suffocation in his chest. What a terrifying fist energy. Even through a sage ruler armor, it can still hurt me. That's terrifying, Zhan Long said with fear in his heart. Seeing that Zhan Long had unleashed his trump card, the other 3 Empyrean walkers no longer held back and unleashed their own trump cards. Streaks of dazzling starlight circulated around Yi Exin, forming a spectacular scene of the Big Dipper hanging in the sky. Big Dipper descent. With a loud shout, the Big Dipper in the sky shone brilliantly at the same time, and 7 streaks of starlight shot out from it. The 7 stars converged and formed a 100-meter-long Big Dipper sword shadow. Wherever the sword shadow passed, the void seemed to be torn apart. Seal of mountains and rivers, 10,000 mountains. Guisan roared, and an endless amount of earth qi converged towards him, forming a gigantic seal that was engraved with the majestic scene of 10,000 mountains and rivers. It then smashed towards Chu Kuangren. Feng Yaorao too channeled her spiritual power to its limits as she plucked the guqin with all 10 of her fingers. Waves of guqin music surged in the void and blasted towards Chu Kuangren like a tidal wave, wave after wave. Everlasting fragrance. The strongest guqin music in the Thousand-Flower Valley had been unleashed. The 3 Empyrean walkers had each used their trump cards and unleashed their strongest techniques. 3 different surges of Taoist rhymes, but all of them were equally powerful and unparalleled as they blasted towards Chu Kuangren. Chapter 350. The 3 Empyrean walkers unleashed their trump cards at the same time. Terrifying energies blasted towards Chu Kuangren at the same time, causing the air around him to explode continuously. Even the void was almost distorted. Chu Kuangren stood calmly in the void amidst all these energies. It was as if everything before him was nothing more than a gentle breeze. He held the guqin in front of him and plucked the strings with his fingers. His eyes narrowed, and a majestic guqin Taoist rhyme gushed out. Heavenly reverberation. The Guqin music reverberated through the air. The heavens and earth trembled. Wave after wave of Guqin Taoist rhyme attacked everything around him. The dazzling Big Dipper sword shadow was disintegrated, the gigantic mountain river seal was shattered, and the enchanting Guqin Taoist rhyme went silent. The energies that blasted towards Chu Kuangren were completely disintegrated by the Guqin Taoist rhyme. They could not hurt him at all. On the other hand, Yi Exin, Feng Yaorao, and Guisan were all severely injured by the heavenly reverberation. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their bodies involuntarily flew backward. Their auras instantly weakened. Among the 4 Empyrean walkers, only Zhan Long, who was wearing a sage ruler weapon armor, could still fight. However, after witnessing Chu Kuangren's overwhelming combat strength, Zhan Long could not help but gulp. His battle intent was much lower than before, and he looked at Chu Kuangren with shock in his eyes. This is too terrifying. He managed to injure 3 Empyrean walkers so easily. Is this guy really from an orthodoxy like the Black Heaven sect? Besides, Zhan Long glanced at the Descendant Self-sword hanging on Chu Kuangren's waist. He knew that Chu Kuangren most likely did not use his full strength because he had not drawn his sword since the beginning. We've lost this battle. Zhan Long took a deep breath and said, although he was unwilling to admit defeat, he knew very well that he was no match for Chu Kuangren even if they continued fighting. The 4 Empyrean walkers had suffered a crushing defeat in today's battle. Since you've admitted defeat, there are some things that we should talk about, Chu Kuangren said as he put away his lingering song. What is it? I'm sure you've destroyed quite a number of buildings in the Black Heaven sect a few days ago. You should at least compensate us with some soul stones, right? Of course. Zhan Long did not refuse and threw out a yin and yang ring. Chu Kuangren took it and nodded in satisfaction. As expected of the Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands. They were so generous with their gifts, casually handing out tens of millions of upper-grade spirit stones. TSK. Those unknown lands had existed for countless years, and the depth of their heritage far surpassed that of the sage orthodoxies. Who knew how many treasures they had? If he could go there and plunder, at that thought, Chu Kuangren hurriedly extinguished that dangerous thought. The unknown lands had a lot of resources, so he could not afford to mess around. He looked at Guishan, who handed over his interspatial ring. Very good. Since we've fought, I won't be sending you off. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. Looking at the direction of the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate, the few Empyrean walkers could not help but smile bitterly. They were all cultivated by the unknown lands and were prodigies who had made a name for their orthodoxies. Their battle prowess was much stronger than the prodigies of the outside world. Therefore, they were arrogant. When they descended into the realm this time, they had defeated countless sky prides with a near-invincible attitude. They did not expect to suffer an unprecedented blow from Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, this person's strength, is unfathomable. Yexin took a deep breath and said, with this person around, it'll be difficult for others to become emperors. Zhan Long was extremely solemn as well. Since the great Dharma emergence of this era, there won't be only one person who becomes an emperor. However, the first person to become an emperor will undoubtedly have a huge lead. But with this person around, who can beat him to becoming an emperor? A person like him is indeed worthy of being called a celestial being. Feng Yaorao said with a strange glint in her beautiful eyes. Not only did she not resent Chu Kuangren for beating her up, she even felt a strange sense of admiration for him in her heart. The news of Chu Kuangren defeating 4 Empyrean walkers spread like wildfire. Some of the forces who were paying attention to this matter were shocked. They had expected Chu Kuangren to win, but they did not expect him to win so easily. The unknown lands, in particular, were even more depressed. They had sent Empyrean walkers into the realm for 2 reasons. 1, to spread the name of their orthodoxies and pave the way for the appearance of the unknown lands. The other reason was to let the Empyrean walkers fight for luck in this era of great battles and win the opportunity to become an emperor. However, now there was a Chu Kuangren in the world. He was the only one in the world, and all the luck in the world was concentrated in his hands. How many opportunities did the others have to become an emperor? Chu Kuangren did not know what the unknown lands were thinking. Of course, even if he knew, he would not care. Becoming an emperor depended on one's own abilities. Being stronger than others was his greatest ability. After defeating the Empyrean walkers, Chu Kuangren returned to the Black Heaven sect. Nangong Huang, Elder Ruyan, and the other elders held a celebration feast for him. Chu Kuangren felt that there was no need for such a grand celebration since he had only defeated a few Empyrean walkers. However, he could not dissuade Elder Ruyan and the others. A few days after the celebration feast, Chu Kuangren received a piece of news. Oh, Linglong is preparing to ascend the throne? Chu Kuangren could not help but be surprised when he saw the Royal Azure Dynasty ruler's message. Princess Linglong of the Royal Azure Dynasty was about to ascend the throne, and Chu Kuangren had no reason to reject her invitation. The next day, Chu Kuangren brought Lan Yu to the Royal Azure Dynasty. At this time, the Royal Azure Dynasty was also very lively. The news of Princess Linglong's ascension had spread like wildfire in a short period of time. Although it was rare for a woman to be in charge of politics, it was not unprecedented in the history of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Moreover, Princess Linglong's reputation in the Royal Azure Dynasty had been growing over the years, so no one objected. Of course, even if there were, it would be easily suppressed. It did not take long for Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu to arrive at the Royal Azure Palace. The Royal Azure Dynasty ruler and Princess Linglong came out to welcome them. "Fiancé, you're here." "Yes, it's your ascension ceremony." "Of course, I have to come." Chu Kuangren looked at the dazzling Princess Linglong and smiled. "Ha, my dear son-in-law, the news of you defeating 4 Empyrean walkers has spread like wildfire. You're indeed the best." The Royal Azure Dynasty ruler laughed. "Father, you flatter me." Then, the Royal Azure Dynasty ruler hosted a banquet for Chu Kuangren. At the banquet, many of the royal family members were present. Some of the capital city's socialites looked at Chu Kuangren with admiration in their eyes. They looked at Princess Linglong with envy. The princess and her fiancé are really a match made in heaven. That's right. The fiancé is the Black Heaven sect leader, the most popular person in the world today. On the other hand, the princess is going to ascend the throne in 2 days and take control of the Royal Azure Dynasty. The two of them are well matched. The socialites were truly envious. Princess Linglong also had a faint smile on her face. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, maintained a gentle smile on his face, which made the socialites' hearts race. Nevertheless, they did not dare to have any ideas about him. They knew very well that with their status, it was impossible for them to get involved with Chu Kuangren. Chapter 351. At the banquet, Chu Kuangren noticed Guchanga, who was sitting at the side. She was originally the crown prince, so logically speaking, she should be the one to ascend the throne. Now, it was Princess Linglong who was going to ascend the throne. Chu Kuangren would not have been surprised even if the emperor was unwilling and angry. However, at this moment, the emperor was chatting happily with the princes beside him. He did not seem to be angry at the fact that his throne had been taken away. Chu Kuangren was secretly surprised. Had she become so broad-minded after not seeing her for a few years? He thought about it for a while and decided to ignore it. The Royal Azure Dynasty king must have told Guchanga about Linglong's ascension to the throne. He must have done some mental preparation. Soon, the banquet ended. One by one, the royal family walked out of the palace. What a pity! The throne should have been the crown prince's. Who would have thought that Linglong would appear out of nowhere? That's right. But Linglong is also extraordinary. She's very resourceful, or else father wouldn't have valued her so much. Most importantly, her fiancé is Chu Kuangren. That's her biggest trump card. It's no wonder that father would choose her. TSK, what a shame. The crown prince may look fine on the surface, but who knows how frustrated he must be. The two princes walked out of the palace with their arms around each other's shoulders, tipsy. Suddenly, they bumped into someone. When they looked up, it was Guchanga standing in front of them. Both of them straightened their faces and quickly bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Our apologies for bumping into you, Your Highness. We're a little drunk. No worries. Wuxia smiled faintly. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. Both of them did not dare to stay any longer. Who knew how much of their conversation Wuxia had heard? If they were to pursue the matter, they would be in deep trouble. The sky is dark. Since you two are a little drunk, please be careful. Wuxia acted like a caring elder brother. Thank you for the reminder, Your Highness. We'll be careful. Both of them slowly left. Wuxia did not do anything and left as well. Not far away, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu watched everything unfold. This Wuxia has changed a lot. Young master, do you think he's faking it? Lan Yu said with a frown. Chu Kuangren shook his head. I don't know. Wuxia had changed a lot. Those who didn't know might think that he had been possessed by someone. However, Chu Kuangren had used his eye of revelation to observe her. She was still the same Wuxia. Aside from her slightly stronger cultivation level, there were not many other changes to her. She did not seem to have been possessed either. It doesn't matter if he's faking it or if his personality has really changed. As long as he doesn't pose any threat to Linglong, everything will be fine. Let's go, we should head back too, Chu Kuangren said. Yes. Inside the palace, the royal Azure Dynasty king had specially arranged for Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu to stay in their respective palaces. Even if the two of them were not around, there would be someone to take care of the place. As long as the two of them came to the palace, they could move in at any time. The night before Linglong's coronation ceremony, a maidservant arrived at Chu Kuangren's palace. Prince consort, the princess would like to invite you over. Is something the matter? Chu Kuangren was rather surprised. This servant does not know. All right, I got it. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He followed the maidservant to Linglong's palace and saw her standing in front of a bronze mirror. She was dressed in an incomparably gorgeous royal robe, like a high and mighty queen, exuding an air of nobility. Prince consort, this is the dress for tomorrow's coronation ceremony. Do you think it looks good? Princess Linglong opened her arms and smiled. The royal robe was embroidered with mountains, rivers, and auspicious beasts. The crimson skirt dragged on the ground like a blazing fire. Linglong wore a phoenix hairpin on her head. Her silky black hair flowed down her back like washed silk, and the dress on her chest was embroidered with a peony that symbolized nobility. She was beautiful, but at the same time, she exuded a noble aura that could not be offended. Graceful and luxurious, showing off the demeanor of an empress. Chu Kuangren let out a heartfelt compliment with a smile. Linglong, who was praised, revealed a smile on her face. Then, she shot a glance at the maidservant beside her. The maidservant understood tacitly, bowed, and then excused herself. Only Linglong and Chu Kuangren were left in the palace. Prince consort, it's all thanks to you that I'm able to reach where I am today and become the empress. Allow me to propose a toast to you. Princess Linglong flicked her sleeves and 2 cups and a pot of wine appeared on the table. Chu Kuangren smiled. You're too kind, princess. Both of them chatted as they drank. Since it was just the two of them, Princess Linglong opened her heart to Chu Kuangren and told him many things that outsiders did not know. Outsiders only saw her appearance, but they did not know how much effort she had put in to ascend to the throne. Since young, aside from cultivation, she had to learn all sorts of scriptures, the mind of an emperor, and deal with the ministers of the imperial court. I'm very happy. Tomorrow I can finally ascend to that position. I will definitely bring peace to the world and bring peace to the world. Princess Linglong spoke of her ambition. After 3 rounds of wine, she did not use her cultivation to dispel the alcohol. Her face was flushed red, which made her already noble look even more seductive. But there's something I'm even happier about. Princess Linglong stared at Chu Kuangren and smiled. That is, I've gotten to know you, Prince Consort. Although I haven't spent a lot of time with you, I believe that I've enjoyed every moment that I've spent with you. She got up and slowly walked towards Chu Kuangren. She stretched out her slender finger and drew a circle on Chu Kuangren's chest. Her eyes were a little misty as she said, I wonder if you've ever fallen for me, Prince Consort? Looking at the tipsy Princess Linglong before him, Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. He grabbed her arm, pulled her into his arms, and bent down to pick her up. Ah! Princess Linglong could not help but scream when her body was suddenly lifted into the air. Chu Kuangren looked at Princess Linglong in his arms and smirked. I'm very touched now. Princess Linglong heard him and hooked her arms around Chu Kuangren's neck. She whispered into his ear, "Stay for tonight." As you wish, Your Majesty. Chu Kuangren carried Princess Linglong to the bed. He then reached out to take off his robe. However, Chu Kuangren was quite frustrated when he was taking off the royal robe. Why is this royal robe so troublesome? It's one piece at a time. Heh, are you panicking now? I'm dying of anxiety. After some effort, the royal robe was taken off one by one. Then, the bead curtains fluttered in the wind and the bed creaked. Sorrowful moans could be heard. The battle went from one end to the other, from once to twice, then thrice, until the sky turned bright. Your Highness, the coronation ceremony is about to begin. The servant's voice came from outside the door. Princess Linglong slowly woke up and looked at Chu Kuangren, who was sleeping in her arms. She smiled and got up to put on her clothes. However, she frowned as if she had touched a sore spot. She seemed to have thought of something and looked at the sleeping Chu Kuangren. She blushed and muttered, "This guy doesn't know how to control himself." Chapter 352. Chu Kuangren's eyelashes fluttered as he slowly woke up. He got up and yawned, feeling refreshed and refreshed. Beside him, Princess Linglong was already dressed with the help of a servant girl. He watched from the side with a smile in his eyes. Princess Linglong initially wanted to pretend that she did not see it, but she could not help but admit defeat under his gaze. Her fiancé was just too good-looking, especially when he looked at her with a smile in his eyes. It was so unbearable that her body felt like jelly. "Fiancé, what are you looking at? Why aren't you dressed?" "Princess, you look a little weird today." "Weird?" Princess Linglong looked into the mirror. "What do you mean? You look good." Princess Linglong was speechless. The servant girl beside her could not help but laugh. She did not expect the Black Heaven sect leader, who was on par with the royal Azure dynasty, to have such a side to him. "You may leave now," Princess Linglong said to the servant girl. "All right." After the maidservant left, Princess Linglong looked at Chu Kuangren and said helplessly, "It's fortunate that she's my personal maidservant. Otherwise, if word of your glib tongue were to spread, your reputation as the honorable sect leader would be ruined." "If it's ruined, then so be it. I don't care," Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. Then, with Princess Linglong's help, Chu Kuangren put on his clothes. Both of them then walked out of the bedroom and headed towards the ceremony. "Welcome, Your Majesty." At the ceremony, the officials stood neatly in a row. Princess Linglong was dressed in a royal robe. She looked dignified as she walked towards a high platform. Behind her, two servant girls were holding up the hem of her dress. Chu Kuangren watched from the side. He could not understand why the gown had to be designed in such a way. It was so complicated. It took him a lot of effort to undo it yesterday. If not for the fact that he had to use it for the ceremony today, he would have torn it apart. Incense to the heavens. I, Gu Linglong, the 17th ruler of the royal Azure dynasty, hereby pray to the heavens. May the heavens bless the royal Azure dynasty with good weather. After a round of prayers, the royal Azure dynasty king handed the imperial seal to Linglong. With that, the ceremony was over. "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Greetings, Your Majesty." The officials kowtowed. Linglong had become the royal Azure dynasty king. The nine-headed snake-let pearl disappeared? After the coronation ceremony ended, Linglong and the royal Azure dynasty ruler received a piece of news that caused their expressions to change. Beside him, Chu Kuangren was rather surprised. "Nine-headed snake-let pearl? What is that?" "Fiancé, you may not know this, but the nine-headed snake-let pearl is one of the treasures of the royal Azure dynasty. It was crafted from the holy spirit of an ancient beast, the nine-headed snakelet, and has been sealed deep within the palace. At this point Ling Long frowned. If the nine-headed infant pearl is gone, then why don't we see the guardian of the nine-headed infant pearl? Where is he now? In reply to the Empress, Elder Lu is dead. The guard who came to report said. Elder Lu was the guardian of the nine-headed snakelet pearl. He was an existence that was close to becoming an honorable supreme. There were not many people in the Royal Azure Sky Palace who could kill him. Hurry up and investigate who did this, Ling Long said with an ugly expression. It was only the first day of his ascension to the throne, and such a thing had already happened. This was a slap to her face. If this matter was not handled well, it would definitely have a significant impact on her prestige as the new empress. There's no need to investigate. It was done by Guchanga. At that moment, an old man walked into the palace. Upon seeing this person, the Royal Azure Dynasty king went up to him. Sage, you're here. You said that this was done by Changa. What happened? This old man was one of the sages of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Not long ago, Guchanga went to the nine-headed snakelet pavilion, killed the guardian, and took the nine-headed snakelet pearl. When I realized this, I wanted to capture him, but I didn't expect him to have a secret treasure on him. I chased after him to no avail, and he escaped. At this point, the sage's expression turned ugly. Unfilial son, this unfilial son. The Royal Azure Dynasty king was furious. He wanted to leave the palace to look for Guchanga, but he was stopped by the sage. Calm down. Sage, don't stop me. I must capture this unfilial son and bring him back. The Royal Azure Dynasty king said angrily. Father, please calm down first. There are still some strange things that we haven't figured out yet. Princess Ling Long also tried to persuade him. What else is there to figure out? This unfilial son must be unhappy that I didn't pass the throne to him. That's why he stole the nine-headed snakelet pearl. Firstly, even if Guchanga was unhappy, why would he use such a method to take revenge? Secondly, there are so many treasures in the palace, why would he target the nine-headed snakelet pearl? Is there something special about this nine-headed snakelet pearl? At that moment, Chu Kuangren spoke. At his words, the Royal Azure Dynasty king and the sage looked at each other. Beside them, Princess Ling Long had a serious look on her face as she said, I'm afraid this has something to do with the Nine-Head clan. The Nine-Head clan, the Royal Azure Dynasty's nemesis? That's right. The Nine-Head clan has always worshipped this ferocious beast, the nine-headed snakelet. All these years, they've attempted to enter the palace to steal the nine-headed snakelet pearl, but they've all failed, Princess Ling Long said. Does this mean that after Guchanga stole the nine-headed snakelet pearl, he'll most likely head to the Nine-Head clan? Chu Kuangren asked. That's possible. Princess Ling Long nodded. I'll send troops to the Nine-Head clan and bring Guchanga back. That's not a good idea. You've just ascended to the throne, so your foundation isn't stable yet. If you recklessly start a war with the Nine-Head clan, your chances of winning are slim, the Royal Azure Dynasty king said. I'll go. At that moment, Chu Kuangren said. Everyone looked at him. Since I don't have much to do these days, I'll pay a visit to the Nine-Head clan. If Guchanga is really there, I believe they'll give me face. Probably. Chu Kuangren smiled. The Royal Azure Dynasty king and the others looked at each other. If Brother Chu is willing to go, then it won't be a problem. I'll have to trouble you then. The Royal Azure Dynasty sage bowed and said, No problem. Chu Kuangren smiled. He did not stay in the palace for long and departed the next day. Inside the Nine-Head clan, a young man dressed in black held a rainbow-colored bead in his hand. The bead was glowing with light, and inside it was a nine-headed serpent that was letting out bursts of roars. It was the nine-headed snakelet pearl that was stolen from the Royal Azure Dynasty palace. Brother Li, now that I've obtained the nine-headed snakelet pearl, I wonder if you've promised to let me join the craggy ocean tower. Behind the black-robed man stood a person. It was Guchanga. The black-robed man smiled. Rest assured, Brother Gu. Since you've helped me with this, I'll let you join the craggy ocean tower. Not only that, but I'll also request the sect leader to let you become a Taoist. That's much better than being a king. Hearing the words of the man in black, Guchanga's eyes lit up and he looked a little excited. Thank you, fellow Li. The craggy ocean tower was one of the unknown lands, and its resources were much stronger than the royal Azure dynasties. To Wuxia, as long as he could join the craggy ocean tower and become a Taoist, his future would be bright. Once I become a core member of the craggy ocean tower, the royal Azure dynasty will be my oyster. What royal Azure dynasty king? I don't care. Wuxia snorted. Chapter 353. On the way to the Nine-Head clan, Chu Kuangren held in his hand a drawing that he bought from a hawker. On the drawing was a strange snake with 9 heads, and its ferocious appearance sent chills down the spines of anyone who saw it. An ancient wild beast, the 9-headed snakelet. Rumor has it that this wild beast is good at controlling fire and water. I didn't expect the Nine-Head clan to worship such a wild beast. Interesting. Chu Kuangren smiled. Beside him, Lan Yu also looked at the drawing curiously. How ugly. It's not as pretty as Lil Red, Lan Yu said. Of course, one is an auspicious divine beast while the other is a wild beast. There's no comparison. However, this 9-headed snakelet is not to be underestimated either. If we were to rank it according to its bloodline, the 9-headed snakelet is second only to the divine beasts. Chu Kuangren said. Then, he looked at the barren Taoist prefecture. We're only 300 kilometers away from the Blackwater prefecture where the 9-head clan is. Let's go. We should be there by today. Inside a tent in the 9-head clan. Everyone, once young Master Li awakens the 9-headed snakelet, will be able to conquer the Taoist prefecture. The 9-head clan leader was enjoying wine and meat as he talked about the bright future with the elders. The rest of the elders were also excited. At that moment, a thunderous roar came from outside. Dark clouds gathered and a storm descended from the sky. D***minute, I've had enough of this H***ty place. It's always raining torrents and floods. One of the elders snorted. Hearing his words, the rest of the elders also looked at him with disdain. Although this was the place where they grew up, they had no nostalgia for this place. All they felt was disdain. As long as we conquer the royal Azure dynasty, the vast Taoist prefecture will be ours. By then, we can get whatever resources we want. That's right. This is all thanks to the young master. It's all thanks to his foresight that we could get the 9-headed snakelet pearl from him. I can't wait to have some fun at the royal Azure dynasty palace. The elders laughed heartily. At that moment, a member of the 9-head clan rushed into the tent. That person was panicking and his eyes were filled with fear as he said, "Clan leader, bad news." What happened? Why are you so panicked? Chu Kuangren is here. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard this. Why is he here? Wait, is he here because of Wuxia? The 9-head clan leader's expression froze. Only then did he and the other elders remember that Chu Kuangren was not only the Black Heaven sect's sect leader, but he was also Linglong's husband. He was also the king consort of the royal Azure dynasty, which meant that he had countless ties with the royal Azure dynasty. Come, let's go meet this Chu Kuangren, the 9-head clan leader said after a moment of silence. They walked out of the tent. Within the torrential downpour, 2 people stood there. One was a man and one was a woman. Both of them were peerless geniuses. Around them, there was an invisible barrier that easily blocked out all the rain. The ground was covered with muddy water, the sky was raining, and the wind was howling. On the other hand, these 2 people were untainted by even a speck of dust. It was as if they were isolated from the world. They stood aloof from the world and were breathtaking. A strange look flashed across the 9-head clan leader's eyes. He then slowly walked towards Chu Kuangren and Linglong and said with a smile, "Sect leader Chu, your presence brings light to our humble 9-head clan. All right, I'll skip the pleasantries. Hand over Wuxia and the 9-headed snakelet pearl," Chu Kuangren said. The 9-head clan leader was taken aback. "Sect leader Chu, what are you talking about? Wuxia is the royal Azure dynasty's crown prince. Why would he be here? And what's the 9-headed snakelet pearl? You can't hide the truth by pretending to be ignorant. I advise you to hand it over before I decide to be rough with you," Ling Yun said. Sect leader Chu, I'm really. Before the Nine-Head Clan leader could finish his sentence, an inexplicable chill appeared amidst the torrential rain and enveloped half of the Nine-Head Clan settlement. I'm running out of patience. Please speak cautiously, clan leader. Chu Kuangren said. The rain was loud and Chu Kuangren's voice was not loud, but the Nine-Head Clan leader could hear him clearly. At that moment, his heart turned cold and he felt as if the blood in his body was about to freeze. Sect leader Chu, don't you think you're being a little too overbearing by forcing the Nine-Head Clan to hand it over? At that moment, an old voice could be heard. An old man suddenly appeared in the void. This old man was wearing a robe, and he stared at Chu Kuangren with a displeased look on his face. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. He was the sage of the Nine-Head Clan, a third-step sage. Then, Chu Kuangren slowly raised his arm, and a majestic Buddhist light formed into a giant golden palm that slammed towards the old man. The rainwater was blasted apart by that attack, turning into a mist that filled the sky. What? The old man's expression changed. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to attack so suddenly. Caught off guard, he quickly channeled his spiritual power to gather the rainwater around him and formed a giant water pillar that smashed towards him. The two energies collided. Then, the water pillar was shattered by the giant golden palm, and the violent energy swept out and landed on the old man's body. In an instant, the old man was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. His clean robe was stained with muddy water. A sage like him looked like a beggar by the roadside. Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. The Nine-Head Clan leader said angrily. However, as soon as he said that, a powerful sword-based Taoist rhyme spread out and enveloped the sky above the Nine-Head Clan. Everyone in the Nine-Head Clan, including the clan leader and the sages, felt their scalps go numb. Under the influence of that Taoist rhyme, the rainwater around them seemed to have turned into sharp blades that could slice them into pieces at any moment. I've told you that I'm running out of patience. If you dare to utter another word, you won't be able to live even if the Nine-Head Clan has 9 heads. I'll ask you again, where's Guchanga and the 9-headed snakelet pearl? Chu Kuangren said coldly. The Nine-Head Clan leader and the sages who were lying on the ground were so furious that their mouths twitched. However, there was nothing they could do. Too domineering. This person was really too domineering. Annihilating the Nine-Head Clan. How could he say something like that? However, the Nine-Head Clan leader did not doubt that Chu Kuangren was capable of such a thing. Chu Kuangren had wreaked havoc in the Deep-Sea Scale tribe, and the Nine-Head Clan was far weaker than the Deep-Sea Scale tribe. How could they possibly stand up to Chu Kuangren? The 9-headed snakelet Pearl and Guchanga did come to the Nine-Head Clan, but they're no longer here, the Nine-Head Clan leader said. He had given in to Chu Kuangren. Oh, where did they go? The Black Swamp. The Nine-Head Clan leader gritted his teeth and said, why did they go there? To help the young master revive the 9-headed snakelet lord. Chu Kuangren was surprised. Revive the 9-headed snakelet lord? Are you saying that they're going to revive the 9-headed snakelet? That's right. The 9-head clan leader then explained everything. It turned out that an Empyrean walker had recently arrived in the 9-head clan, and this Empyrean walker also had the bloodline of the 9-head clan. This was because he had become the young master of the 9-head clan. In order to revive the 9-headed snakelet, he had bribed Guchanga, who had been dispirited in the royal Azure dynasty, to steal the legendary 9-headed snakelet pearl for him. Chapter 354. The Onyx Swamp was a forbidden area of the 9-head clan. It was a densely packed swamp that contained a large amount of poisonous gas. Even an honorable would feel uncomfortable if they were to enter this place. At that moment, 2 people were walking in the Onyx Swamp. One of them was in front while the other was at the back. The one leading the way was the Empyrean walker from the craggy ocean tower, Lize. Behind him was the crown prince of the royal Azure dynasty, Guchanga. The 2 of them walked all the way to the depths of the Onyx Swamp. In this place, there was a terrifying and unparalleled ferocious beast. It had a pile of heads, and its body was more than 10,000 feet long, the 9-headed dragon. Although the 9-headed snakelet was lying on the ground and looked like it had been dead for a long time, its ferocious and violent aura still lingered on its body. No living creature dared to approach the onyx swamp. In fact, the black swamp beneath Li Zhe and Guchanga's feet was caused by the leaking aura of the other party. As expected of an ancient wild beast. It has been dead for so many years, yet it still has such an aura. Li Zhe's eyes burned with passion. If he had the help of such a wild beast, he would definitely be able to take the lead in this era of great battles and obtain most of the emperor opportunities. Even the legendary Chu Kuangren would not be a match for it. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. This trip to the Nine-Head clan was the right choice. Buzz. At that moment, the nine-headed snakelet pearl in Li Zhe's hand seemed to have sensed the presence of the nine-headed snakelet's corpse. It began to vibrate violently, and the nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit let out a series of baby-like cries. The nine-headed snakelet's corpse was also vibrating slightly. The sage spirit and the physical body resonated with each other. Guchanga exclaimed beside him. No wonder the Nine-Head clan has been trying to get their hands on the nine-headed snakelet pearl all these years. It's because there's a nine-headed snakelet's corpse hidden in the Nine-Head clan. But where did this nine-headed snakelet come from? It's all because of the founding emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Tens of thousands of years ago, the founding emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty led an army to kill the nine-headed snakelet and used a formation to extract its sage spirit to refine this nine-headed snakelet pearl. In the end, Jiao Ying exhausted the last of his holy spirit energy and charged out of the formation. He ran to the Blackwater State and fell into a river. His body was covered in wounds, and his blood dyed the entire river red. At that time, there was a tribe at the lower reaches of the river. They drank the water from the river and were tainted with the blood of the nine-headed snakelet. They then found the body of the nine-headed snakelet and brought it back to worship it. This was the origin of the Nine-Head clan, and also the reason why the Nine-Head clan and the Royal Azure Dynasty are enemies. Other than the fight for resources, there's also this grudge. Li Zhe spoke slowly. Then, he tossed the nine-headed snakelet pearl into the nine-headed snakelet's body. His eyes were burning with passion. And today, the god of the Nine-Head clan, the nine-headed snakelet, will finally return to the world. As the nine-headed snakelet pearl fused into the nine-headed snakelet's body, the scales on the surface of the nine-headed snakelet began to tremble. The originally lifeless body suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying aura that swept through the entire swamp. Not long after, the eyes on the nine heads of the nine-headed snakelet opened one by one. Its body coiled up and it roared towards the sky. A peerless and savage aura spread out. The peerless beast from tens of thousands of years ago had once again descended upon the world. So powerful, under the nine-headed snakelet's aura, Guchanga could not help but tremble. The nine-headed snakelet's nose twitched. Its 9 pairs of blood-red, lantern-like eyes stared at Guchanga and Li Zhe. Kid, the aura on you too is very strange. One is of the same origin as me, the other has the bloodline of my enemy. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying murderous aura gushed out and landed on Guchanga's body, pressing him to the ground. Beside him, Li Zhe stood where he was and looked at the nine-headed snakelet. Congratulations on your revival, nine-headed snakelet. So, you're the one who sent my Holy Spirit back. Very well, kid, you've done well. Seeing that you have a trace of my bloodline, I can promise you one thing. Speak. The nine-headed snakelet's voice was neither male nor female, and it was extremely sharp. It sounded as if it was about to pierce through one's eardrums. But Li Zhe did not mind at all. Very well, I want you to be my mount and accompany me to conquer the world. Hearing this, the nine-headed snakelet was stunned. Then, it let out a sharp roar and a terrifying murderous aura poured out like a flood. Kid, how dare you? The nine-headed snakelet was an ancient beast with a noble bloodline. Asking him to be a human cultivator's mount was ridiculous. Humph, we still don't know who's the one being presumptuous. Li Zhe's eyes turned cold. Then, with a thought, the nine-headed snakelet's pupils shrank. An intense pain shot through his mind, causing him to roll around on the ground, his 9 heads swinging back and forth. The entire black swamp shook violently. B** starred. Arg, it hurts. Li Zhe stood where he was and said calmly, "The Nine-Head clan respects you like a god, but unfortunately, I'm different. I'm the craggy ocean tower's Empyrean walker. I was born to reach the top. Nine-headed snakelet, you have no choice but to submit to me." Li Zhe stood proudly and his words were domineering. The nine-headed snakelet was enraged and roared, "What did you do to me? Craggy Ocean Tower. This is a secret beast-taming technique of the Craggy Ocean Tower. I've planted your Holy Spirit in Craggy Ocean Tower. With a single thought, your Holy Spirit will feel as if it's being crushed by the mountains and seas. Do you really think that I'll return your Holy Spirit to you without doing anything?" Li Zhe said. Then he retracted the power of Craggy Ocean Tower. The nine-headed snakelet gradually recovered from the pain. He looked at Li Zhe with fear and said, "Craggy Ocean Tower, I've never heard of this name. Empyrean Walker, could it be that you're from one of those unknown lands?" Nine-headed snakelet, times have changed. This is the Great Tao manifestation era of great battles. Various unknown lands have appeared, and all sorts of sky prides have appeared. I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me and accompany me to the top. In the future, when I become an emperor, you'll also rise to the top. The nine-headed snakelet's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. However, due to his fear of Craggy Ocean Tower, he had no choice but to nod and submit. "A wise move," Li Zhe said. "However, my physical body has been lying around for a long time. Even though it hasn't decayed yet, its vitality is fading. I need a large amount of flesh and blood to recover my strength. Also, this fellow is the bloodline of my enemy. I'm going to eat him." The nine-headed snakelet looked at Wuxia and said coldly, "Brother Li, save me." "Up to you." Wuxia looked at Li Zhe in fear. He did not expect Li Zhe, who had promised to let him enter the Craggy Ocean Tower, to go back on his word and allow the nine-headed snakelet to eat him. Wuxia turned around and tried to escape, but the power of water and fire gushed out of the nine-headed snakelet's mouth and landed on his back. His internal organs, bones, and flesh were smashed to pieces. In just one move, he was severely injured by the nine-headed snakelet. Then, the nine-headed snakelet opened his mouth and swallowed Wuxia into his stomach amidst his terrified screams. "Oh, it's still a Taoist physique. It can recover quite a bit of my strength. Next, it's over there. Most of my bloodline is gathered there. If I eat them, I'll be able to recover even faster." The nine-headed snakelet looked at the nine-head clan in the distance and licked his lips. Li Zhe frowned slightly when he heard this. Then he relaxed his brows. "Sure. I don't have any feelings for this clan anyway. If they can help you recover faster, their deaths will be worth it." Chapter 355. A long howl was heard accompanied by ferocious chi. Everyone in the nine-head tribe sensed the aura. The nine-head tribe leader and the others were overjoyed as they looked towards the direction of the black swamp. "It's a success. The young master has successfully revived the nine-headed snakelet lord. This is great. The nine-head tribe's glory day is upon us." The nine-head tribe members looked into the distance with fervent gazes. Some of them even knelt down and kowtowed towards the nine-headed snakelet. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, was unmoved. "Looks like we were too slow to revive the nine-headed snakelet. Judging from this aura, it's indeed extraordinary. Is it close to the level of a sage ruler?" Chu Kuangren murmured. Not long after, the ferocious chi was getting closer and closer. The nine-head tribe leader and the others immediately rushed out of the tribe and knelt on the ground, ready to welcome the nine-headed snakelet lord. From afar, a gigantic black shadow was slowly approaching. That black shadow was a giant nine-headed snake that was more than 1,000 feet long. It was covered in black scales, its head was ferocious, and its blood-red eyes exuded an endless amount of ferocious chi. To the nine-head tribe leader and the others, it was so majestic and holy that they could not help but worship it from the bottom of their hearts. "Welcome, sage ruler. Welcome, sage ruler." The nine-head tribe leader and the others knelt on the ground and said loudly. The nine-headed snake was confused. What's going on? Why is this food being served on a plate? Ehe, I won't hold back then. The nine-headed snakelet chuckled. Under the nine-head tribe leader's fervent gaze, it opened its mouth and bit down on the kneeling nine-head tribe members. Large amounts of blood mixed with internal organs splattered out. The nine-head tribe leader's body was splashed with blood. The scene before him stunned him and he could not react for a while. It was only when he heard cries of agony that he realized what was going on. The nine-headed snake was devouring his tribe members. Huh, delicious, delicious. It's been a while since I've had such a good meal. The nine-headed snakelet's 9 heads kept popping out, and the 9-head tribe members were bitten into pieces and swallowed them into his stomach. His abdomen glowed with a faint red light, and a blood mist surrounded his black scales. The 9-headed infant, which had not been nourished for tens of thousands of years, was like a withered tree. At this moment, it hungrily devoured flesh and blood to recover its strength. The entire 9-head tribe turned into a living hell in an instant. Chaos ensued. Screams, howls, and cries filled the air. Everyone was shrouded in despair. It was not the fear of death. Instead, it was a kind of despair from the collapse of faith. None of the 9-head tribesmen expected that the god they worshipped would do such a thing to them after his resurrection. They revered the Jiao-ing as a god, but the Jiao-ing saw them as food. How could this be? How could this be? The 9-head clan leader looked at the scene in disbelief. He looked at Jiao-ing, who was crazily devouring his clansmen, and his eyes were bloodshot. He rushed in front of Jiao-ing and loudly asked, "Holy Lord, why are you doing this to us?" Why? What he got in response was Jiao-ying's bloody mouth. The 9-head clan leader dodged the attack in a flustered manner. Just as he was about to say something, his vision suddenly turned dark. It was as if he had fallen into a damp cave filled with mucus. Then he felt a sharp pain and he lost consciousness. To the others, it looked like the 9-head clan leader had dodged one of the Jiao-ying's heads but was swallowed by the other head. The 2 heads of the Jiao-ing looked at each other. Did that guy say anything? I don't know. Who cares? Let's eat first. The Jiao-ing then ignored him. His 9 heads continued to move and devour the fleeing 9-head tribesmen. At that moment, a palm chi mixed with rainwater came from afar and landed on one of the Jiao-ying's heads. That head tilted and looked into the distance, only to see an old man in plain clothes glaring at him with hatred and despair. A sage? Hee, it must taste even better. The Jiao-ing did not care at all. That head that was hit only shook a little. After taking a palm strike from a sage, it did not suffer much damage. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he saw that physique. Die, you monster! The 9-head clan's sage roared and unleashed one palm strike after another. His attacks were mixed with rainwater and sometimes even flames. The Jiao-ing was an expert in controlling fire and water. Since the 9-head clan possessed a trace of the Jiao-ying's bloodline, most of their cultivation techniques were related to fire and water. The water and fire palm chi landed on the Jiao-ying's body one after another. Each palm strike was powerful enough to split mountains and break rivers, but after dozens of palm strikes, they only managed to break the Jiao-ying's scales and leave some superficial wounds. That scene made the 9-head clan's sage despair. Suddenly, he saw a person standing on one of the Jiao-ying's heads. The person was dressed in black and had a cold expression. It was Li Zhe. The 9-head clan's sage's eyes lit up when he saw him. He yelled, "Young master, quick, stop this monster." Unexpectedly, Li Zhe only stared at him coldly. Why should I stop him? The Jiao-ing has just awakened, so he needs a large amount of blood and flesh essences to recover his strength. Don't you all worship him like a god? If that's the case, what's the point of sacrificing blood and flesh for the sake of a god? The 9-head clan sage was in disbelief. Young master, how could you say something like that? You're also a member of the 9-head clan. So what if I am? But to be honest, I left the 9-head clan a long time ago and have been staying in the craggy ocean tower all these years. I don't have much affection for you all. Your lives are not as important as my great cause. Li Zhe said mercilessly. You be asterisk starred. The Nine-Head Clan's sage was furious. Li Zhe's expression turned cold. He then slowly raised his hand, and a terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme gathered in his palm. He then blasted it out, forming a ferocious beast silhouette in the void. The Nine-Head Clan sage, who had expended a large amount of spiritual power to deal with the Jiao-Ying, could not resist that surge of power. He was blasted away by that surge of power, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The Jiao-Ying then stretched his head out and swallowed him. After eating a sage, his aura became stronger, and the blood mist around his body became denser. Not long after, half of the Nine-Head Clan sage was devoured by the Jiao-Ying. Chu Kuangren, who had been watching from the sidelines, slowly walked out with Lan Yu and looked at the giant serpent and Li Zhe. Meanwhile, Li Zhe had also noticed the two of them. Oh, such an extraordinary aura, such looks, and that sword. If I'm not mistaken, you must be Chu Kuangren. That's right. You're here for Guchanga. That's true. You're too late. That guy has already been eaten by the Jiao-Ying. He should be digested by now, Li Zhe said. Is that so? What a shame. Although he said that, Chu Kuangren did not look sorry at all. He looked at Li Zhe and the Jiao-Ying helplessly and said, I'm here for Guchanga and the nine-headed snakelet pearl, but it seems like I won't be able to find either of them. I have to find a way to report back. Why don't I take both of your lives? Chapter 356. Why don't I take both of your lives? Chu Kuangren said calmly. As soon as he said that, a layer of chilling intent enveloped the entire area. The rain seemed to have turned into sharp blades. Li Zhe's eyes turned cold when he heard Chu Kuangren's words. You want to kill me? Do you know that I have the unknown lands backing me? I know, but what can I do if I kill one of them? Try me if you can. Li Zhe snorted. As he lifted his arm, a large amount of spiritual qi gathered in his palm and formed into a huge spiritual bird that flew out. On top of the bird, terrifying lightning energy surrounded it. Thousand Beasts Art, Thunderbird. Chu Kuangren calmly raised his hand when he saw that. Chu Kuangren unleashed a palm attack, shattering the raindrops that filled the sky. That so-called Thunderbird had been forcefully shattered by Chu Kuangren. That power made Li Zhe's pupils dilate. So powerful, as expected of the legendary Chu Kuangren. Li Zhe was secretly shocked. Meanwhile, the nine-headed snake let out a sharp roar as the raindrops gathered into a water spike and shot out. The nine-headed snakelet was an expert in controlling fire and water. Although he had not fully recovered from the storm, not everyone could block that seemingly ordinary water spike. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and directed the earth qi to form a godly mountain. In the blink of an eye, the water spike exploded into mist. Is that all the nine-headed snakelet can do? Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back and said with a hint of provocation in his eyes. How could a dignified ancient wild beast tolerate such provocation? It let out an enraged shriek, and the torrential rain froze for a moment. Then, countless raindrops transformed into water spikes and charged towards Chu Kuangren at an extreme speed. Chu Kuangren took out the lingering melody. He plucked the strings with his fingers and with a clang, the Guqin Taoist rhymes erupted, shattering the water spikes that were coming towards him. Resonant bell strike. Chu Kuangren flicked his finger and a terrifying sound wave instantly spread out, smashing onto the nine-headed snakelet's head. One of the nine-headed snakelet's head was smashed and it was extremely dizzy. The remaining 8 heads stared fiercely at Chu Kuangren as if they had been angered by him. Then they lunged forward to bite him. Li Zhe, who was standing on Jiao-Ying's head, could only stand up and retreat a distance away when he saw Jiao-Ying going berserk. He looked at Chu Kuangren, who was being attacked by the nine-headed snakelet, and sneered. Chu Kuangren, you're too arrogant. Even if the nine-headed snakelet has yet to fully recover its strength, its combat strength is still not something an ordinary sage can handle. Even a peak great sage would find it difficult to deal with. He's definitely going to die. The nine-headed snake that was an ancient ferocious beast with extraordinary strength. Although its physical body had been dead for tens of thousands of years, after absorbing a large amount of flesh and blood essence from the Nine-Head clan, its strength was already half of its peak. To Li Zhe, Chu Kuangren was no match for his opponent. In fact, as Chu Kuangren continued to play his Guqin music, waves of Guqin Taoist rhymes erupted and blasted towards the nine-headed snakelet. Although he managed to block off the nine-headed snakelet's bite for the time being, it still consumed a lot of his spiritual power. Lan Yu, you can leave first. Lan Yu nodded slightly and retreated a few thousand feet. Chu Kuangren put away the lingering Song Guqin. The descendant's self-sword at his waist was unsheathed, and a dazzling purple sword ray instantly soared into the sky and landed on the nine-headed snakelet's head. Sparks flew as the sword ray collided with the snake scales. In the end, the sword ray's sharpness broke through the snake scale's defense, and a large amount of blood gushed out like a fountain. It was like a rain of blood. One of the nine-headed snakelet's eyes was torn apart by the sword ray, and the excruciating pain made the nine-headed snakelet let out a shrill scream. I'll eat you, I'll eat you. I'll definitely eat you up. The nine-headed snakelet roared. The excruciating pain triggered its ferocious chi, and it waved its 9 heads in the air. In an instant, the weather changed, and a terrifying Taoist rhyme shrouded the entire area. One of the 9-headed snakelet's heads spewed out flames, while the others spewed out black water. Whether it was flames or water, both were extremely terrifying. An ordinary sage would be injured even if they were just grazed by them. Chu Kuangren unleashed his phantom light strike technique and dodged the attacks at an extremely fast speed. Then, with a single thought, surges of sword chi shot out and intertwined in the air, forming multiple sword chi clones. Not long after, hundreds and thousands of sword chi clones surrounded the nine-headed snakelet. The nine-headed snakelet was dumbfounded at the sight. Is this an emperor technique? An emperor technique that can create clones? Not far away, Li Zhe was shocked as well. He could clearly feel that each of the sword chi clone's strength was no weaker than an honorable. If these hundreds and thousands of honorables attacked him together, he would be sliced into pieces in a matter of minutes. I can't believe Chu Kuangren has such a cultivation technique. No wonder he could defeat 4 Empyrean walkers in a row. His strength is indeed incredible. There's actually a sky pride of this level in the outside world. Before meeting Chu Kuangren in person, Li Zhe's impression of him was based on rumors and collected intelligence. However, after meeting him today, he realized that Chu Kuangren's combat strength was much more terrifying and shocking than he had imagined. Get rid of him. Chu Kuangren looked at the nine-headed snakelet and ordered. Upon receiving the order, the hundreds and thousands of sword chi clones instantly rushed out and unleashed a large amount of sword chi around the nine-headed snakelet. D***eminit. D***eminit. The nine-headed snakelet was enraged, and his 9 heads continuously spat out water and fire. Intense sword chi fluctuations erupted continuously. Although the nine-headed snakelet's physical strength was terrifying, Chu Kuangren's sword chi clones were not weak either. Moreover, each sword chi clone was holding a treasured sword in their hands. Each of them was a top-notch honorable weapon. Some of them were even sacred swords. After all, these swords had been nurtured in the sacred emerald sword case for so many years. Coupled with Chu Kuangren's continuous improvement in cultivation, even an ordinary sword of steel should have become an honorable weapon. This was the terrifying power of the sacred emerald sword case. Ordinary people could only nurture 2 or 3 weapons, but Chu Kuangren had the sacred emerald sword case. As long as the weapons he nurtured were not more powerful than emperor weapons, Chu Kuangren could nurture as many swords as the sword case could hold. Gradually, the nine-headed snakelet's body was covered in bloody scars. Although each of the scars was not deep, there were so many of them that they covered the nine-headed snakelet's entire body, dyeing his snake scales a bloody red. Faced with the joint attack of hundreds and thousands of sword chi clones, the nine-headed snakelet was reminded of the time when he was surrounded by the royal Azure dynasty's founding emperor. At that moment, the nine-headed snakelet's rage had reached its peak. The ferocious qi on his body spread like waves, accompanied by a terrifying burst of water and fire Taoist rhymes. Under the impact of this Taoist rhyme, the sword qi clones in the air burst like bubbles, and the long swords in their hands fell to the ground. Not far away, Li Zhe breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, Chu Kuangren can't kill the nine-headed snakelet with his current strength. Although the nine-headed snakelet looks battered now, the injuries he sustained are only superficial. It won't affect his combat strength much. At that thought, he looked at Chu Kuangren's real body not far away. Chapter 357. At that moment, Chu Kuangren was sitting on a large green boulder with a bottle of wine in his hand. He was enjoying it. After the nine-headed snakelet destroyed all the sword qi clones, Chu Kuangren looked up. Oh, it's over. As expected of a wild beast. The corner of Li Zhe's mouth twitched. He felt that Chu Kuangren did not take the nine-headed snakelet seriously at all. No matter what, it was still an ancient wild beast. Can't you give me some face? B****, I'm going to eat you up. The nine-headed snakelet roared angrily and charged towards Chu Kuangren. However, at that moment, countless sword qi gushed out from the ground and intertwined in the air, forming a sword qi wall. The nine-headed snakelet's head smashed onto the sword qi wall and bounced back. What's going on? Li Zhe's expression changed slightly. Then, he looked at the long swords that were scattered on the ground. Those long swords were vibrating at that moment, and the sword qi wall that gushed out was the work of those swords. Although there were no sword qi clones, those swords were emanating an even more terrifying sword qi. Sword formation, activate. Chu Kuangren said calmly. The swords that were scattered on the ground rose into the air and circled around the nine-headed snakelet's body, forming an incredibly mysterious sword formation. There were a total of 365 swords. It was the four-season sword formation. How does this guy have so many tricks up his sleeves? First it was the 8 celestial demonic chords, then the sword qi clones, and now this sword formation. Every single one of them was an incredible emperor-level technique. Yet Chu Kuangren, a guy who was not even a sage, had so many emperor-level techniques up his sleeves. It was a fantasy. Even the unknown lands might not have so many emperor-level techniques. The four-season sword formation was activated, and surges of sword qi shuttled back and forth within the sword formation. It was filled with a mysterious Taoist rhyme of the 4 seasons. Under such power, even the nine-headed snakelet felt pressured. Since I've broken through to the Honorable Supreme Realm, this is my first time using the 4-season sword formation. Let me test its power on you. Chu Kuangren smiled. The sword qi shuttled back and forth, continuously attacking the nine-headed snakelet's body. Its power was much stronger than when he used hundreds and thousands of sword qi clones. The Jiao-ing opened its mouth and spat out flames and water, crazily attacking the sword array. However, no matter what he did, the sword formation still showed no signs of breaking. With Chu Kuangren's current strength, no one below the level of a sage ruler would be able to break through this sword formation. Even a saint king could be trapped for a short period of time. Jiao-ing might have been able to break through this sword formation when he was at his peak, but now that he had just recovered, even if he had devoured a large amount of flesh and blood essence, there was still a certain gap between his strength and that of a true sage king. The 4 seasons rotated and everything changed. Within the sword formation, the endless sword qi in the sky transformed into a huge colorful sword shadow. It contained the mighty power of nature and smashed down on the nine-headed snakelet. This sword shadow landed directly on one of Jiao-ying's heads. The terrifying power had chopped off one of its heads. Boom, the mountain-like head landed on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The Jiao-ing roared in agony. Not far away, Li Zhe was horrified when he saw this scene. Jiao-ing was going to lose. No. I've spent so much effort and even used a secret technique like the craggy ocean pass on him. How can I let him die just like that? The nine-headed snakelet was an ancient wild beast with great potential. Even a sage ruler might not be his limit. If he continued to cultivate, there was a high chance that he could become an emperor in the future. How could Li Zhe watch such a powerful assistant die? Craggy ocean bestial soul, Kuan. Li Zhe let out a loud roar as the spiritual power in his body surged. An incredibly mysterious Taoist rhyme gushed out and intertwined in the void, forming a strange image that looked like a giant whale. The craggy ocean tower was a very ancient orthodoxy. Their cultivation techniques were obtained by observing the rare beasts in the world. Besides that, the high-level cultivators of the craggy ocean tower also possessed something called the craggy ocean bestial soul. It was created by capturing all kinds of rare beasts, extracting their souls, and refining them using a secret technique. A person could only have one bestial soul in their lifetime. Li Zhe's craggy ocean bestial soul was a strange beast called the Kuan. It was a very powerful ancient wild beast, and its potential was not much weaker than an ancient wild beast like the nine-headed snakelet. In the craggy ocean tower, there were only a few bestial souls of this level. In the void, the image of the Kuan gradually materialized, and a majestic ancient wild beast, the Kuan, emerged. Howl. A strange howl reverberated in the void. Vaguely, the sound of a tsunami could be heard in the void. Go! Li Zhe roared and maneuvered the Kuan towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was surprised to see that. Oh, I didn't expect you to be a summoner too. Just when he was about to distract himself from the Kuan, a silver-white figure appeared in front of him. A huge amount of light-based Taoist rhyme poured out like a flood, and a huge white shield appeared out of thin air. The Kuan collided with the shield, and a loud explosion was heard. The surrounding rainwater exploded. Lan Yu's face turned pale, but he still managed to withstand the impact of the Kuan. Master, I'll leave you to deal with the nine-headed snakelet. Leave this Empyrean walker to me. Chu Kuangren was shocked. Just when he was about to say something, he saw the determination on Lan Yu's face, so he nodded. Be careful then. Alright. The scepter of light appeared in Lan Yu's hand, and the silver-white armor covered his body. Dense light-based Taoist rhyme erupted once again, and his sapphire-like eyes stared at Li Zhe with a bone-chilling intent. Empyrean walker, come. Show me what you've got. Oh, young Emperor Lan Yu, I know who you are. But how many moves do you think you can withstand against me? Li Zhe snorted and continued to maneuver the Kuan towards Lan Yu. Holy scorch! Without another word, Lan Yu channeled his spiritual power to the maximum, and a huge amount of white flames burned on the scepter before he smashed it. Lan Yu was sent flying, but the white flames also landed on the bestial soul. The bestial soul was entangled by the flames, and it let out a blood-curdling scream. Li Zhe, who was connected to the bestial soul, was shocked. This flame can burn a bestial soul. This is no ordinary flame. It contains a light-based Taoist rhyme that can purify everything. With that attack, Li Zhe began to take Lan Yu seriously. Both of them exchanged blows again. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren continued to attack the nine-headed snakelet with the four-season sword formation. Soon enough, his opponent had suffered unprecedented damage. Of the 9 heads, 3 had been chopped off. Chu Kuangren's mind moved, and a pitch-black chain suddenly appeared in his hand. It was the soul retriever that he had not used for a long time. Go! The soul retriever flew out and pierced through the sword formation. The 9-headed snakelet's strong physical body was useless against the soul retriever, which specialized in attacking souls. The hook pierced right through it. Then, the 9-headed snakelet, who was still in a daze due to its heavy injuries, suddenly felt a great sense of fear, and it let out a hysterical howl. This feeling, my soul, my sage spirit is leaving me again. Chapter 358. My soul, my sage spirit is leaving me again. Oh no. The remaining heads of the 9-headed snakelet screamed in fear. The 9-headed snakelet's sage spirit had already been extracted and refined into the 9-headed snakelet pearl. Although it had been fused again, it had not been fully fused yet. Moreover, the 9-headed snakelet was still in a daze after being severely injured by Chu Kuangren. Hence, the sage spirit could not resist the soul retriever's attack. A huge nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit was forcefully pulled out by the soul retriever. Chu Kuangren could feel the spiritual power within his body being consumed rapidly. Soon he only had 1/6 of it left. Sure enough, using the soul retriever to pull out a spirit of this level consumes a lot of spiritual power. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. If he was still an honorable supreme, he could not guarantee that the soul retriever would not be able to pull out the nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit. The nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit struggled for a while before its body suddenly emitted a ray of light. Lines of mysterious runes emerged from the sage spirit's body and formed into a huge sphere that sealed it within. Oh no. D***, I've finally regained my freedom. I don't want to turn back into that damned nine-headed snakelet pearl and become a slave again. However, no matter how much the nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit roared, its sage spirit rapidly shrunk under the restriction of those runes. In the end, it turned into a colorful pearl the size of a fist. Chu Kuangren kept the soul retriever. Oh, so this is the nine-headed snakelet pearl? Chu Kuangren was rather surprised. He did not expect that the runes that refined it into the nine-headed snakelet pearl would not disappear after the nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit returned to its physical body. When the nine-headed snakelet's sage spirit was pulled out, the runes took effect once again and refined it into the nine-headed snakelet pearl. The founding emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty sure has some tricks up his sleeves. Chu Kuangren exclaimed and kept the sword formation. He held the nine-headed snakelet pearl and roared at the nine-headed snakelet in it before tossing it into his yin and yang ring. Then, he looked at Lan Yu, who was fighting Li Zhe not far away. She had improved tremendously, especially during this period of time. Even Chu Kuangren felt ashamed of how hard she had been cultivating. Although there was still a gap between his combat strength and that of an Empyrean walker's, it was not too far off. He was able to put up a good fight against Li Zhe. Damn it, the nine-headed snakelet sacred spirit has turned back into the nine-headed snakelet pearl. Li Zhe's expression was extremely gloomy. He could feel that the Xianxia Sea mystic technique that he had planted in the nine-headed snakelet holy spirit could not be sensed at all. Clearly, it was suppressed by the runes of the nine-headed snakelet pearl. The nine-headed snakelet is gone. There's no point in staying any longer. Li Zhe took a deep breath and urged his mountain and sea origin spirit Kuan to knock away Lan Yu. He was about to withdraw his origin spirit and leave. However, at this moment, a black chain flew out and hooked the mountain sea origin soul, Kuan, tightly, preventing it from returning. In a sense, the mountain and sea source spirit was the same as the sacred spirit. It was also a kind of spirit body. As long as it was a soul, the soul reaper chain would be effective. What happened? Li Zhe's expression changed. He kept urging the spiritual power in his body, but he still couldn't summon the mountain sea essence soul, Kun. This Leviathan is quite interesting. It's like some sort of summon creature. Let me see what's going on. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and began to analyze the bestial soul. Kun, one of the ancient mutated beasts. Its soul was captured by the craggy ocean tower and refined into a bestial soul using a secret technique. Chu Kuangren came to a realization after a while. It seems like the craggy ocean tower has quite a few of these things. Why don't you take a few out for fun? The seed of bestial souls is a secret treasure of the craggy ocean tower. Non-core members are not allowed to touch it. Why would we give it to you? Li Zhe snorted coldly. If that's the case, what's the point of keeping you around? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Chu Kuangren slowly reached out his arm, and dense spiritual power instantly erupted, forming into a giant golden hand. The giant palm of exorcism was unleashed. With his bestial soul restrained, Li Zhe's expression changed when he saw the giant palm pressing down on him. He immediately channeled the remaining spiritual power in his body and unleashed a punch. Thousand Beasts Art Xianxia. A ferocious tiger-like mutated beast leaped into the sky. The Xianxia's power violently collided with the giant golden hand. However, with a loud explosion, the Xianxia's shadow shattered into countless spiritual power fragments. It has the form but no soul. The craggy ocean tower's thousand beasts art is only SOS. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Through the eye of revelation he had already seen through Li Zai's cultivation technique. The thousand beasts art was not weak at all. In fact, it was close to an emperor's scripture. Unfortunately, it was still not an emperor's scripture. Boom! The giant palm forcefully pressed down on Li Zai's body. It ruthlessly smashed his opponent into the ground. The terrifying energy instantly shattered Li Zai's bones. "You dare kill me?" Li Zai said in horror. "Why wouldn't I?" Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Unlike the few Empyrean walkers who came to the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren's grudge with Li Zai was much deeper. Yi Xin, Feng Yaorao, and the others had only lost to him in challenges. On the other hand, Li Zai had tricked Guchanga into stealing the nine-headed snakelet pearl and wreaking havoc in the royal Azure dynasty. Now that he had killed the nine-headed snakelet that Li Zai had painstakingly obtained, Li Zai would not let this go easily. If that's the case, I might as well kill him. With another palm attack, Chu Kuangren killed Li Zai on the spot. The moment Li Zai died, the craggy ocean bestial soul that Chu Kuangren had hooked onto with the soul retriever turned into countless spots of light and gathered in the air to form a fist-sized egg. Chu Kuangren stood where he was and rubbed his chin for a while. This should be the bestial soul seed. As long as I refine this bestial soul seed, I can summon the craggy ocean bestial soul, Kun Kun. TSK, I didn't expect to have such an unexpected gain. He kept the original spirit seed and used the gluttonous Tai technique to refine Li Zai's corpse. He also threw Jiao Ying's corpse into his Qian Kun ring and cleaned up the scene. The storm was still pouring down. As long as they left, no trace would be left behind. Erase the corpses complete. Chu Kuangren clapped his hands. There was no one around. The nine-head clan had either escaped or been eaten. After the nine-headed snakelet's rampage, the nine-head clan was done for. They would never be able to invade the royal Azure dynasty again. Let's go. Chu Kuangren left the scene with Lan Yu. In the craggy ocean tower. On top of a mountain peak, a powerful aura suddenly erupted. Who is it? Who killed the Empyrean walker of the craggy ocean tower? On top of the mountain peak, an old man was furious. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, and due to his extreme anger, his face would occasionally show fine, dragon scale-like patterns. In his hand, there was a broken jade slip. It was Li Zai's life jade scroll. Once Li Zai was dead, the life jade scroll would shatter as well. Investigate. Send someone to investigate. Honorable teacher, please let me go. At that moment, a green-robed man walked up and said, "Now that senior brother is dead, the craggy ocean tower will need to send out a new Empyrean walker. While we're making a name for ourselves, I'll investigate the cause of senior brother's death." That's good too. Yuan Xian, you're no weaker than your senior brother. Although I have faith in you, you still need to be careful when you go out. Especially that Chu Kuangren. Don't provoke him if you can, the old man said slowly after taking a deep breath. Yes, honorable teacher. Chapter 359. After dealing with the nine-head clan, Chu Kuangren returned to the royal Azure dynasty and handed the nine-headed snakelet pearl to Linglong. Then, he told them about Guchanga's death. Linglong and the royal Azure dynasty ruler were silent for a while. After a long while, the royal Azure dynasty ruler sighed helplessly. What an unfilial son. Why did you have to do this? He did not say anything. Death was like smoke, and there was nothing he could do even if he wanted to. Chu Kuangren stayed in the royal Azure dynasty for a few days before he left. He was not in a hurry to return to the Black Heaven sect. Along the way, he passed by the school of White Lotus. Since they were allies, he decided to pay them a visit. Let me buy some fruits. Chu Kuangren thought that he could not go empty-handed. Hence, he went to the streets. It had been almost 2 years since the three-headed hound broke the seal, and the capital city of the Full Moon Kingdom had been rebuilt. People were coming and going on the streets, and it was very lively. Master, look over there. Lan Yu suddenly noticed something and pulled Chu Kuangren's sleeve, pointing to the middle of the street. He looked over curiously. There were two statues in the middle of the street. One of them was a female statue, the founder of the school of White Lotus, the White Lotus sage ruler. Beside it was another statue. It was a man with an ancient sword hanging on his waist. An old man and a little girl stood beside the statue. The old man looked at the statue with reverence in his eyes. "Grandpa, who is this man? Why do you stop here every time you pass by?" The little girl asked curiously. The old man looked at the statue and said, "Xiaolan, you must remember this man. He's the bachelor sage of the school of White Lotus." The old man paused. "I don't think he's a bachelor sage either. I heard that he's now the supreme elder of the school of White Lotus. Regardless of whether he's a bachelor sage or an elder, he's still a hero of the Full Moon Kingdom. He's the one who saved you, Grandpa, and the entire Full Moon Kingdom." The little girl nodded as if she understood. She then looked at the statue and said, "Grandpa, he's so handsome. I'll marry him when I grow up. What do you say, Grandpa?" Sure. The old man laughed. At that moment, Chu Kuangren was already close to the statue. He rubbed his chin and said, "This person is quite handsome, but why does he look so familiar?" Beside him, the little girl noticed him and cried out in surprise. She tugged at the old man's sleeve. "Grandpa, it's a hero, a hero. Xiaolan is naughty." The old man did not pay much attention to it. When he looked up and saw Chu Kuangren, he was shocked and immediately knelt down in excitement. "Greetings, Lord Saint." The people on the street also noticed this scene and looked over. When they saw Chu Kuangren, all of them were so excited that they knelt on the ground with a fanatical look on their faces. "Greetings, Lord Saint." "Greetings, Lord Holy Sun." Chu Kuangren was a little confused by the scene before him. It was true that he had once been a holy son of the White Lotus Society, but were all the holy sons of the White Lotus Society so ostentatious? Were all the people going to kneel when they saw the saint? "Everyone, please rise. Don't stand on ceremony." Chu Kuangren flicked his sleeves and a gust of gentle spiritual power swept out like a breeze. Like an invisible giant hand, it lifted everyone up. "Thank you, Saint." "Thank you, Bachelor Saint." The people still looked at Chu Kuangren passionately. When Chu Kuangren looked at the statue, he finally understood why it looked so familiar. It was him. The school of White Lotus had erected a statue for him. "The maiden sage is here." A lady in white walked out from the crowd. It was the White Lotus maiden sage. She came before Chu Kuangren and said with a smile, "Supreme Elder, why didn't you tell us beforehand that you're here to visit? We could have prepared to welcome you." Chu Kuangren smiled and said, "I was just passing by, so I thought of paying you a visit. I'm just here for a free meal. There's no need to make it so grand." The surrounding people started to discuss among themselves when they heard that. Lord Bachelor Sage is really approachable. He's not a bachelor sage anymore. He's a supreme elder now. Whether he's a bachelor sage or an elder, he's our savior and hero. We respect him and love him. That's right. Chu Kuangren was a little embarrassed when he heard the people around him. Isn't this a little too passionate? The White Lotus maiden sage brought Chu Kuangren back to the school of White Lotus headquarters. Along the way, she told Chu Kuangren about the changes that had taken place in the past 2 years. Among them, the thing that concerned Chu Kuangren the most was why the people of the Full Moon Kingdom worshipped him so much. It was because when Chu Kuangren helped the school of White Lotus to suppress the three-headed hound, his miraculous methods had left a deep impression on the people. Many of them treated him as the incarnation of the White Lotus sage ruler. The king of the Full Moon Kingdom even erected a statue of him beside the White Lotus sage ruler so that he could stand shoulder to shoulder with her. Coupled with the school of White Lotus support, Chu Kuangren had become a religion in the Full Moon Kingdom and the surrounding countries. His reputation could even be compared to the White Lotus sage ruler. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren came to a realization. A powerful religion would allow the school of White Lotus to better rule and manage the southern countries. The founder of the school of White Lotus, the White Lotus sage ruler, had been around for tens of thousands of years. Although there were still many people who worshipped her, it would be difficult to further strengthen her faith. Chu Kuangren's appearance was an opportunity for the School of White Lotus. The School of White Lotus intended to create a new religion to maintain their governance and rule over the southern countries. As long as they said that Chu Kuangren was the incarnation or reincarnation of the White Lotus sage ruler, it would not conflict with the original beliefs of the School of White Lotus. After all, Chu Kuangren was indeed using the White Lotus light of purification. By doing this, you guys are almost treating me as your spokesperson. I can ask for endorsement fees from you guys. Spokesperson? Endorsement fees? What does that mean? The White Lotus Maiden Sage was confused. Nothing much. Chu Kuangren smiled and did not say anything else. If the School of White Lotus wanted to create a religion out of him, it would not do him any harm. Since that was the case, he did not have any objections. Elder, you're here. Once he entered the headquarters, Chu Kuangren met a familiar face. It was Honorable Qing Lan, who had been his protector in the past. Elder Qing Lan, how have you been? Sigh, Elder, I can't accept you calling me Elder now. Please don't call me that anymore. Honorable Qing Lan smiled bitterly. What was Chu Kuangren's current status? The Black Heaven sect leader, the Royal Azure Dynasty's equal ruler, the School of White Lotus Supreme Elder. Any one of these people could easily overpower her. Of course, more importantly, Chu Kuangren's strength was many times stronger than hers. Even the sages would not dare to accept being called elder by him, let alone a mere honorable like her. Heh, Brother Qing Lan, how have you been? That sounds much better. Leader, there are still sages waiting for you inside, Honorable Qing Lan said. Chu Kuangren walked into the Great Hall and saw the immemorial sage and the White Lotus leader. The few of them gathered together and began to catch up. Among them, the incident on the unnamed island and the headless lady was brought up. The immemorial sage still had lingering fears. That headless lady was too terrifying. Just thinking about it makes me nervous, immemorial sage said. Looking at the immemorial sage's terrified expression, Chu Kuangren suddenly remembered that the headless lady's head was in his yin and yang ring. If he took it out and showed it to the immemorial sage, who knew how scared she would be? Chapter 360. Congratulations, host. You've obtained a God-tier physique, the Universal Cauldron Physique. On this day, Chu Kuangren stood up to draw his gacha. His eyes lit up when he saw the reward. It was another God-tier prize. Moreover, it was a God-tier physique that was similar to the immortal body. He opened his inventory and read the description of the Universal Cauldron Physique. The more he read, the more amazed he became. The Universal Cauldron Physique was extremely powerful. It was a physique that could convert all energy in the world into energy that was suitable for one's cultivation level. In other words, with this physique, Chu Kuangren would no longer be limited to absorbing spiritual qi from the heavens and earth or consuming medicinal pills to increase his spiritual power. He now had many more options. The essence of the sun and moon, the mysterious flames of the world, the souls of cultivators, and even the demonic qi from hell, all of these could be converted into spiritual power that was suitable for him. That was undoubtedly a very terrifying thing. With this physique, Chu Kuangren could increase his strength by devouring all kinds of energy that other cultivators could not. He could use his body as a cauldron to refine the heavens and earth. I was just worrying about not having enough resources to help me form the Supreme Sage Foundation level. This Universal Cauldron Physique came at the right time. A satisfied smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face. Without hesitation, he extracted the physique. In the next few days, Chu Kuangren was not in a hurry to leave. He stayed in the School of White Lotus for a few days. Occasionally, he would spar with the immemorial sage and give some pointers to the bachelor saints. However, today was the day. A few uninvited guests suddenly appeared in the School of White Lotus. Among them, one of them was from the outer seas. In the School of White Lotus's Great Hall, a black-robed, spirited old man with an aquiline nose stared at the immemorial sage and said, "Immemorial sage, please hand over Black Peak's corpse. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy." "I told you I don't have his corpse." That day on the unnamed island, someone saw you fighting Black Peak. When I returned to Ravengale Island, I found that his soul lamp had already dissipated. If you didn't kill him, who else could it be? Even if I killed him, I don't have his corpse. Even if I did, his bones would have been turned into ashes long ago, Immemorial Sage said coldly. Her tone was filled with unforgettable hatred. Hearing this, the aquiline-nosed old man could not help but frown. Black Peak is a sage after all. His sage body is a great treasure to cultivators below the sage level. Even if the immemorial sage has no use for it, surely someone from the White Lotus School can use it? This was also the reason why he was looking for the immemorial sage. Deaths and injuries were inevitable in a battle between sages. Moreover, the immemorial sage had a personal grudge with the Ravenblade sage. She had killed the Ravenblade sage. Even if he wanted to seek revenge, he would not be able to do so easily. He wanted to retrieve the Ravenblade sage's corpse first. It was not that he had a lot of feelings for the Ravenblade saint, but it was time to sacrifice the serpent deity soon. Although the Ravenblade saint was dead, his body was an excellent sacrifice. He was right. He was here to find the corpse of the Ravenblade sage and bring it back as an offering. I said I don't have it, and that means I don't have it. The immemorial sage snorted. The Ravenblade sage's corpse had been refined by Chu Kuangren using the gluttonous devouring technique, leaving nothing behind. The aquiline-nosed old man frowned. The immemorial sage was adamant that there was no Ravenblade sage's corpse, but he did not have any evidence. Hence, he could not do anything to her. The immemorial sage then ignored the old man. She looked at the other two people in the great hall. One of them was a black-robed young man, and the other was an old man in a cloak. For some reason, the immemorial sage could not help but feel uncomfortable when she looked at them. Why are you two here at the School of White Lotus? I heard that the forefather of the School of White Lotus, the White Lotus sage ruler, had once sealed a Cerberus. Not long ago, the Cerberus broke out of the seal and was later killed. We want the corpse of this demonic beast. The black-robed young man said. The immemorial sage was a little confused. What was going on? Why were they all here to ask for her corpse? We don't have the corpse of the Cerberus either. That was a sage ruler. His physical body is extremely precious, so the School of White Lotus must have preserved it. The black-robed young man said confidently as he stared at the immemorial sage. I've already said that we don't have it. Whether it was the Ravenblade sage or the Cerberus, they were all refined by Chu Kuangren using the gluttonous devouring technique. How could the immemorial sage possibly have them? I have great use for the Cerberus's corpse. I'm willing to exchange it for 200 million top-tier soul stones. Otherwise, the School of White Lotus will not have an easy time today, the black-robed young man said. He even threatened her. The immemorial sage was furious. Every one of you has come to the School of White Lotus to look for a corpse. Do you guys think the School of White Lotus is a funeral parlor? At that moment, a white-robed figure slowly walked into the great hall. The black-robed young man and the others were stunned when they saw this person. Even a sage like the aquiline-nosed old man was filled with fear. It was Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, the cloaked old man behind the black-robed young man, looked up at Chu Kuangren with a hint of hostility in his eyes. However, he quickly averted his gaze, afraid that he would be discovered. However, Chu Kuangren had long seen through his identity. King Yenluo of the Underworld Palace, are you still trying to hide your identity in front of me? Chu Kuangren immediately revealed the cloaked old man's identity. The aquiline-nosed old man did not mind. However, the immemorial sage's expression changed slightly. You're from the Underworld Palace. She did not have a good impression of the Underworld Palace. Previously, the Cerberus had broken its seal because of King Wuguan. Sect leader Chu, you really have a sharp eye. How did I give myself away? The King Yenluo said calmly. The black-robed young man beside him also looked at Chu Kuangren curiously. I can smell the disgusting stench of the demonic orthodoxy's Underworld Palace from afar, Chu Kuangren said calmly. He had many dealings with the Underworld Palace, and a few of the 10 kings of the underworld palace had even died by his hands. Even without the Eye of Revelation, he could still sense something from his opponent's technique aura. "Since you're here, why don't you stay?" Chu Kuangren suddenly said as he raised his hand and grabbed at the King Yenluo. A majestic Buddhist light manifested and turned into a giant golden hand. In the face of such power, the King Yenluo, who was only an honorable supreme, could not withstand it at all. His expression changed drastically as he did not expect Chu Kuangren to make a move. Beside him, the black-robed young man snorted. "How dare you!" He took a step forward and a black skull appeared on his body. With a chilling aura, it collided with the giant golden hand. With a loud explosion, the giant golden hand dissipated and the skull shattered. The black-robed young man and the King Yenluo were pushed back a few meters. Chu Kuangren stood on the spot, unmoving and as steady as a mountain. To be able to withstand this attack of mine, your position as Acheron Manor's Empyrean Walker is not in vain. Chu Kuangren smiled. The immemorial sage and the aquiline-nosed old man looked at the black-robed young man in surprise. They did not expect him to be an Empyrean Walker. Chapter 361. So this is Chu Kuangren's true strength? How terrifying! Yuan Wudao stared at Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. Both of them had only exchanged one move, but Yuan Wudao had used more than 70% of his strength. Yet, he was still forced back a few meters. Chu Kuangren did not move an inch. It was obvious that Yuan Wudao did not use that much strength. 50%? 30%? No matter how much he used, Chu Kuangren's strength was undeniably above him. Yuan Wudao was unwilling to admit defeat. "Chu Kuangren, we're here to make a deal with the School of White Lotus. I don't think this has anything to do with you," Yuan Wudao said calmly. "You brought people from the Underworld Palace here to make a deal? I can only say that there's nothing to talk about." Chu Kuangren sneered. He did not have a good impression of the Underworld Palace. The other party had caused him trouble time and time again, directly or indirectly, and had even planted a spy in his Black Heaven sect. Now that he had met them, how could he not do anything? Chu Kuangren raised his hand and channeled his spiritual power again. "Chu Kuangren, how dare you be so unreasonable?" Yuan Wudao was enraged and his face was dark. "What a joke! Since when did you demonic orthodoxies become reasonable people?" Scram. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. An even more majestic Buddhist light then transformed into an even more majestic golden palm. The power of that attack was boundless. Yuan Wudao's expression changed slightly as a terrifying and eerie Taoist rhyme erupted from his body, and a sinister black mist rose from it. It was the demonic qi from the underworld. Although demonic orthodoxies were called demonic orthodoxies, it referred to their behavior, and the spiritual power that they cultivated was still common. However, the demonic qi from the underworld was rare. Yuan Wudao unleashed a palm attack, and a cold and violent demonic qi poured out, covering the entire hall in a layer of frost. The demonic qi turned into a black skull and smashed towards the Buddhist light palm. However, the giant hand was like a hot knife through butter, easily shattering the skull and sending Yuan Wudao flying out of the hall with terrifying force. The golden palm continued forward, grabbing the defenseless Yenluo king in its palm. Without saying a word, Chu Kuangren exerted some strength in his fingers and crushed his opponent into a bloody mist. Yuan Wudao's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far." Demonic qi surged all over his body, turning into dark clouds that surged in the sky. Numerous black skulls rose from the surface of his body, looking incomparably sinister. "How dare you bring people from the Underworld Palace in front of me? Who is the one who is being too presumptuous?" Chu Kuangren said coldly. He took a step forward, and an incomparably vast golden Buddhist light shot into the sky, turning into an ancient Buddha that was thousands of feet tall in the void. The Buddhist light illuminated the surrounding 100 miles. Under this golden Buddhist light, the surging devil qi actually melted and disintegrated like snow under the blazing sun. Yuan Wudao's pupils constricted as he was overwhelmed with shock. My demonic energy is so fragile before his Buddhist light. Is he the reincarnation of a living Buddha? Damn it, I'm afraid I'm not his match. Yuan Wudao stared at Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. He finally understood why his honorable teacher had repeatedly warned him to be careful of Chu Kuangren before he entered the realm. Chu Kuangren was a far greater threat to him than the Empyrean walkers. That golden Buddhist light alone was enough to completely suppress his demonic qi. Chu Kuangren, I surrender. Yuan Wudao gritted his teeth and retracted his demonic qi before the battle had even begun. In an instant, the monstrous demonic qi disappeared. Chu Kuangren glanced at Yuan Wudao, feeling rather surprised. He did not expect Yuan Wudao to endure it. The Buddhist light dissipated. Are you going to leave now, or do I have to ask you to? Yuan Wudao took a deep breath, turned around, and left sullenly. Master, are we going to let him leave just like that? Lan Yu asked in confusion. Demonic qi cultivators are few and far between. This person might be of some use. Chu Kuangren stroked his chin as he pondered. To cultivate demonic qi, one must have demonic qi in order to do so. It was not easy to find a stable source of demonic qi in the firmament star. After all, this was not the underworld demonic realm. So where did Yuan Wudao get his demonic qi from? Chu Kuangren felt that there was more to this than meets the eye. After sending Yuan Wudao away, Chu Kuangren looked at the talon-shaped nose old man and said, "The Ravenblade sage died without a complete corpse. His bones had been reduced to ashes." What? Who did this? The talon-shaped nose old man was furious. That was the sacrificial offering that he was supposed to bring back, yet someone had destroyed it. I did it. Do you have any objections? Chu Kuangren said. The talon-shaped nose old man was speechless. Chu Kuangren did it. What else could he say if it was Chu Kuangren who did it? Could it be that he had to fight the other party? He knew his limits. If he were to fight Chu Kuangren, he would not be able to last more than a few moves. That would be suicide. Is there anything else you want to say? No, that's all. The talon-shaped nose old man had no choice but to leave. Chu Kuangren stared at his retreating figure and said, "What's wrong with him to come all the way here just for a corpse? He wants to bring it back as a sacrificial offering." At that moment, Immemorial Sage said. She told Chu Kuangren about the talon-shaped nose old man's plan. Immemorial Sage's younger sister was married to the Outer Seas and later became a sacrificial offering for the serpent deity. She knew a little about it. The serpent deity's prestige in the 36 oceanic islands is very high. It's all thanks to the serpent deity that the 36 oceanic islands are able to achieve what they are today. Hence, every decade, the 36 oceanic islands would offer a batch of sacrificial offerings to the serpent deity. Over the years, countless people have died in the hands of the serpent deity. Even so, the 36 oceanic islands still worship him as a deity. What a pity! Immemorial Sage shook her head and said. At that, Chu Kuangren felt that the 36 oceanic islands were similar to the Nine-Head clan. They both worshipped a long serpent as their deity. Could the serpent deity be a nine-headed snakelet too? He shook his head to get rid of the unrealistic idea. The nine-headed snakelet was an ancient wild beast that was extremely rare. How could he encounter two of them at once? The chances were too low. The serpent deity. If I have the chance in the future, I'd like to meet him. Chu Kuangren smiled. For the 36 oceanic islands to worship him like a deity, he must be at least a sage ruler. A sage ruler was the top existence among the sages. In this era where emperors did not appear, a sage ruler was the strongest. Chu Kuangren might have a hard time dealing with a sage ruler now, but if they were to fight he might stand a chance. After all, he had many trump cards up his sleeves. D****. I can't believe that Chu Kuangren would appear out of nowhere and mess things up. Since I can't get my hands on the three-headed hound's corpse, I guess I'll have to find another way. Yuan Wudao, who had left the school of White Lotus, was furious. Then he seemed to have thought of something. I heard that the winged human tribe also has a demonic well sealed. Maybe I can go there and try. However, he seemed to have thought of something and stopped in his tracks. How could I forget that the woman beside Chu Kuangren is from the winged human tribe? If something happens to the winged human tribe, he might be lured there. F***CK, why is Chu Kuangren everywhere? Yuan Wudao was frustrated. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.